This young black teen, desperate to change his fate, braced himself to take a bullet. The boss, seeing his courage, chose to shoot the bottle beside him instead of firing at the boy. Thinking the kid was loyal, the boss took him under his wing, and the teen rose through the ranks, becoming a favorite. But the root of the story, it all started 10 minutes earlier. A black teenager named Franklin grew up surrounded by crime. Looking to change his life, he went to the biggest drug lord in the area, wanting to become his partner. The drug lord saw him as just a naive kid and didn't take him seriously, but Franklin insisted on working together. Seeing this, the drug lord pulled out a bulletproof vest and told Franklin to prove himself, which led to the scene at the beginning of the video. Franklin didn't hesitate. Maybe the drug lord saw his younger self in Franklin, so he intentionally missed, giving him a chance. Because of this, Franklin got 1 pound of drugs. Right after that, the drug lord told Franklin he had to sell all the drugs in one day, or else he'd face the consequences. For a beginner, this was an impossible mission, but to change his fate, Franklin was willing to do whatever it took. Back to the main story. Franklin took the drugs he just got to his uncle's place, hoping for his help. But when his uncle heard that he needed to sell 1 pound of drugs, he immediately refused. Even Franklin's uncle couldn't sell all that stuff in one day, and besides, he didn't want to bring trouble on himself. "Get all this out of my house." Franklin's aunt saw the whole thing from nearby. After Franklin went home, he just laid on his bed, staring blankly, holding the drugs. Suddenly, someone knocked on his door. He opened it and saw it was his aunt. Next, his aunt took Franklin to a secret location. After a body search, they successfully got in to meet the boss lady there. His aunt introduced Franklin to the boss, and then the three of them went into a private room. Unexpectedly, the boss lady suddenly changed her attitude. Her henchman told her the quality was good. Crane asked Franklin where he got the goods. Faced with the gun, Franklin wasn't scared at all. He told them the owner of the drugs was a big shot in the underworld, and that person asked him to sell this stuff. He also said to her, "If you buy all this today, I'll bring you another kilo tomorrow. But if you kill me today, tomorrow you'll be dealing with a crew of killers." After thinking it over, Crane lowered her weapon, and just like that, Franklin made his first real money. Seeing the weapon in her hand, Franklin knew he had to become strong to avoid being killed at will by others like today. A stronger desire took root in Franklin's mind. The young black man looked at the stack of money in his hand, and the corner of his mouth unconsciously curled up. He had never felt that making money was so easy. Therefore, a crazy thought immediately appeared in his mind. He went to find the drug lord who had previously supplied him with drugs again. It seems like the drug lord was having some trouble at this moment. One of his underlings was testing a bulletproof vest for him, but after taking just 1 shot, he was on the verge of death. To save the underling, they had to take him to the hospital, but the driver also faced the risk of going to jail if he was exposed. Franklin's mind immediately started working, and he said, "Give me 2 more pounds of drugs and I'll take this brother to the hospital." Hearing this, the drug lord thought this kid was very good at seizing opportunities, so he said that as long as he could bring the underlying back safely, he would supply him with a high-quality batch. Then, the drug lord taught Franklin how to answer if the police questioned him, but Franklin didn't pay attention because he had a lot of experience in this matter. He stepped on the gas and drove to the hospital, dropped the underling on the ground, and drove away without caring whether he lived or died. Just like that, Franklin got the goods again. The drug lord liked this young man who dared to think and do, reminding him of his impulsive youth. That evening, Franklin went to see Crane again. Having cooperated once before, both sides were very comfortable this time. But Franklin had no idea that he had touched someone else's pie. With a big buyer like Crane, how could there be no other suppliers? Now that Franklin had stepped in and cut off the other party's path to riches, they certainly wouldn't let it go easily. Franklin was getting ready to drive home when a small car suddenly appeared behind him. As he was preparing to escape, he was knocked to the ground with a punch. The opponents not only beat Franklin up, but also robbed him of all the money he had just earned. Franklin tried to fight back, but the other party pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. Before leaving, they also stole Franklin's beloved car. At this moment, Franklin deeply felt the helplessness of being weak, and he secretly made up his mind to build his empire. He then went into the bar to ask Crane for help, but Crane had no intention of helping and even gave him a lecture. Before you're strong enough, don't steal other people's customers. This was also within Crane's expectations, and this principle was something Franklin would have to abide by for the rest of his life. Before leaving, Crane told Franklin that the two people who attacked him were Lenny and Ray Ray, and that he could find them just by asking around. The next day, Franklin went to see his good brother, asking if he knew anyone with connections. People like that are easy to find, but the price isn't cheap. But to get his money back, Franklin didn't care that much. Then, the two went to a residential area. The leader of this area was Carvel, and seeing a job fall from the sky, he immediately agreed. Learning that the targets were Lenny and Ray Ray, Carvel immediately took the two to Lenny's house. Arriving at the door, Carvel immediately pulled out his gun, ready to settle this in the simplest, most brutal way. Unexpectedly, Franklin was immediately pinned to the wall. "I brought this little punk to you." When Lenny opened the door, Carvel pushed the door open and rushed in. The three of them pinned him to the ground and tied him up. Carvel grabbed a baseball bat, intending to beat Lenny, but Franklin quickly stopped him and then used his strength to question Lenny. But Lenny, not knowing his place, didn't take Franklin seriously. Just then, his underling, Ray Ray, suddenly knocked on the door. The three quickly gagged Lenny to prevent things from getting worse. Ray Ray, thinking his boss wasn't home, just stood outside the door for a moment and then left. Carvel finally lost all his patience. He wanted to use his methods to teach Lenny a lesson. Only screams of agony could be heard from the room. The stolen money was finally found. But as soon as Carvel saw the money, he became greedy. He intended to swallow all the money himself, not caring about the thoughts of Franklin and Leon. "Wait, Carvel, this is my money." Carvel gave a disdainful smile and left the place with the money. Seeing this, Franklin could only cede inwardly, not daring to resist, and could only watch helplessly as Carvel took his money. After returning, Franklin drank alone to drown his sorrows. Being bullied again and again made Franklin gradually become ruthless. He asked his uncle for a gun. His aunt, hearing this, immediately went to get one for Franklin, but was stopped by his uncle. His uncle said earnestly to his nephew, "If you take a gun out there, you have to be prepared to use it at any time. But if you pull out a gun and hesitate to pull the trigger, then your end will be only one death." How could Franklin not understand his uncle's concern? However, to change his destiny, he was willing to risk everything. And so, Franklin got his first gun from his uncle. It was also from that day that he began to change himself step by step, making everyone admire him. The next day, Franklin and Leon went to Carvel's territory. He had to take back what was rightfully his. But as soon as they entered, Franklin discovered that Carvel had used his money to buy a new car. Angry, Franklin pulled out his gun and went into the house. When the two found Carvel and were about to shoot, he suddenly fell to the ground. It turned out he had taken Franklin's money and partied all night. Afterward, Franklin drove to meet the drug lord, wanting to use the car to pay off his drug debt. The clever drug lord immediately refused, but he didn't make things difficult for Franklin, only telling him to get to work quickly and earn money to pay him back. Before leaving, he thoughtfully got Franklin a shovel, telling the two to deal with Carvel, who was lying in the trunk. He also told them to try to bury Carvel in the desert, and to bury him deep to avoid being dug up. Franklin just wanted to go out and make money. He didn't expect to have to do the dirty work of a gangster himself. Afterward, the two drove to a desert far from the residential area. Not long after, they realized that there was a noise coming from the trunk. Unexpectedly, Carvel had woken up. This was the first time the two had done something like this, so they were very nervous. Franklin could only turn up the music to make the atmosphere more comfortable. Just then, Carvel frantically started tearing through the back seat. Leon quickly picked up the gun and pulled the trigger, but he missed and shot outside. This was trouble. Just like that, Carvel chased the two out of the car. The two just waited for Carvel to run out to catch him, but when they got out, they couldn't find Carvel's body anywhere. They followed the trail of blood left on the grass and finally found the target behind a post. Franklin took the gun and slowly walked towards Carvel. Carvel felt regretful. Why did he have to run into this young man? Carvel said he had an old mother, a young wife, and a small child, and asked if he could be given a chance. Franklin agreed with Carvel, but Leon did not. After returning, Franklin took Carvel's car and his motorcycle to sell to a car dealer. Finally, He gathered enough money to cover the lost drug money. He immediately took the money to pay the drug lord Drexler. This also earned Franklin his trust. Drexler was preparing to supply Franklin with more goods, but Franklin told him that he didn't want to do it anymore. Drexler wasn't surprised, just felt a little regretful. Alright, actually you lasted a lot longer than I thought. Not everyone is cut out for this line of work. After receiving the answer, Franklin walked out of the villa with his head held high. That day, Franklin's uncle's house was having a party, and friends from near and far, as well as neighbors, were all gathered there. His good friends suddenly brought Franklin a business partner, wanting to expand their power, but Franklin had already washed his hands of it. He told his good friend that he didn't want to stop bothering him. From now on, he just wanted to live a peaceful life. But the events that followed immediately changed Franklin's mind completely. His uncle accidentally set off fireworks on the roof, and very quickly the police arrived. It turned out that the police had received a report that someone was firing a gun on the roof. The aunt quickly explained that it was just fireworks, but the police insisted that someone had fired a gun and made a big deal out of it. The young and impulsive Franklin couldn't stand it, arrogantly believing he was right, and ended up getting beaten by the police. At this moment, Franklin came to understand many things. When he was a good person, he would sometimes be bullied by bad people, but when he became a bad person, he would be judged by good people. He hated the injustice of this world, and secretly made up his mind to become the most evil person in the world. And it was because of tonight's events that his life changed completely. After the fight ended, Franklin and his brother sat on the roof talking. After thinking it through, he told the other two to get ready. The next day, the three of them easily got 4 pounds of drugs from the drug lord, but when they arrived at the bar, Crane told Franklin he would only take 2 pounds. Franklin was very puzzled. This was all top-grade stuff. Crane advised Franklin that if he wanted to make more money, he had to go elsewhere. This area only had so much, and if Franklin cornered the market, it would put the buyers at risk of being killed. Is this considered a warning? This is a prophecy. Franklin knew this was because he wasn't strong enough yet, and he secretly made up his mind to build a reliable distribution network, creating his territory for business. So he went to his uncle to discuss with him how to expand the distribution network. But his uncle told Franklin a story. About 18 months ago, a group of black men hijacked an oil tanker which was full of drugs. Unexpectedly, that truck belonged to some Mexicans, and because of that, many people met with misfortune. Turns out that incident was why Franklin's uncle didn't touch drugs anymore, but Franklin wasn't willing to accept that. His aunt, knowing his thoughts, suggested going to Nice Place to learn more. Afterward, Franklin and his uncle met with Nice. His uncle asked him to tell Franklin what had happened in the city, intending to make the young man give up the idea of expanding the business. Nice tells Franklin that the drug trade in the whole city is now in the hands of the Mexicans. They operate without considering the consequences, and their methods are extremely ruthless. To expand the business, they have to get through the Mexicans, but with the current situation, it's like walking into a death trap. However, this doesn't stop Franklin's determination to become powerful. The next day, Franklin goes to Nice again to ask for the Mexican's address. Seeing how stubborn Franklin is, Nice gives him 3 warnings. A person will get 3 gifts in life: what your mom teaches you, what society teaches you, and the opportunities that lie ahead in the future. You can't choose the first 2, but you can decide your future. Seeing that Franklin is still determined, Nice has no choice but to give him the Mexican's address. To build his own sales network, the young black man, Franklin, barges into the Mexican's territory. He's immediately targeted as soon as he arrives. Seeing the aggressive stance of the others, Franklin panicked a little. He lied, saying he was lost and had accidentally driven in there. He quickly started the car to leave, but in a second, they smashed the car window. Franklin was dragged out, and the group pinned him on the roof of the car and started searching for him. They quickly found a small packet of drugs in his pocket. Seeing Franklin's suspicious behavior, they figured he was no good, and the guards immediately started beating him up. Just as Franklin was about to be dragged into the house, a man spoke up, stopping them. He was a partner of the Mexican group. Seeing that Franklin was young, he decided to help him out. This guy had some pull around here, so Franklin narrowly escaped a bad situation. Before he left, the man warned Franklin never to come back again. After returning, Franklin, wanting to find a distribution channel, called up 2 of his good buddies to scout for new customers. The 3 of them drove for 7 hours to meet Kevin's cousin in Oakland. Once inside the cousin's territory, the place was crawling with biker gang members posing as thugs. Franklin sees this and his blood starts pumping. To him, everyone he lays his eyes on looks like a walking dollar bill. As soon as they meet, Kevin's cousin warmly welcomes his friends. Since the guy inspecting the goods hasn't arrived yet, the deal is pushed back a bit. His 2 buddies are having a blast, but Franklin isn't interested in any of that. So, he goes out for a walk by himself, and that's when a huge opportunity suddenly appears right in front of him. Franklin stumbles upon an abandoned building and wanders inside. Turns out, it used to be the Brad Panthers, a place where his dad once worked, and old memories suddenly flood back. Just then, a woman calls out to Franklin. As soon as they met, they felt like they had known each other for a long time. They started talking about the place. Then she showed Franklin her drugs. Franklin had never seen this stuff before. He suddenly smelled a business opportunity. After that, she took him to meet the people who wanted to sell the new drug. Franklin couldn't understand why they were selling drugs so cheap. Those guys said they were just responsible for selling and didn't know anything about anything else. Franklin immediately pulled out a wad of cash and bought up all their remaining product. He had only one request: to be taken to their supplier. Pretty quickly, the dealers led Franklin to meet the creator of this new drug. After a bit of talking, Franklin said he wanted to get rich, too. If you could just transfer the production technique for this drug to me, I'll make it famous worldwide. For an artist, this is the kind of thing they dream of, but not everyone can pull it off, so the creator immediately agreed to Franklin's proposal. Thanks to this encounter, Franklin, who was just starting, officially established a solid foothold in the underworld. The next day, the 2 brothers who had just met Franklin were bickering nonstop. They had agreed to wait to make the deal. So why did Franklin suddenly run off? Franklin didn't answer. He just showed his 2 friends the results of his all-nighter. His 2 friends were shocked. What is that? What the hell is this? Franklin nonchalantly replied, our future. This time, Franklin had hit the jackpot. He saw a huge business opportunity and knew that getting rich was no longer just a dream. His 2 good buddies asked him when they could start selling the goods, but Franklin laid out a plan that drove them nuts. They were giving the stuff away for free, not selling it. Since nobody in their city knew about this new drug yet, their first step was to expand the market locally. After that, Leon and Kevin, following Franklin's plan, went out to the streets and gave away free drugs. Just then, a woman suddenly walked up. Kevin directly gave her some to try and told her to spread the word to others. Meanwhile, Franklin wasn't slacking off either. He knew very well how much influence his uncle had in the black neighborhoods. So, he gave his uncle some products to try, but he had one condition: no selling to white people or Mexicans. Franklin then promised his uncle that just by selling in the nearby areas, his monthly income could reach over 7 figures. Hearing such an attractive number, his uncle and aunt's eyes lit up like stars, and they immediately agreed to Franklin's plan. Everything was going according to schedule. That evening, Franklin went to the park to check on the drug distribution. Sure enough, Leon had been giving away free drugs all day. Not making a single dime all day had left him feeling pretty annoyed. Seeing Franklin teasing him made his blood boil. Leon complained that Franklin did the least work but got the biggest cut. Franklin told Leon that everything they had now was because he risked his life to get it. After saying that, Franklin threw a wad of cash in Leon's face. There's an old saying: to swallow an insult is to avoid trouble 9 times out of 10. But the youth of today have a saying: swallow one insult and you'll have 9 people walking all over you. Leon and Franklin exchanged a few words and then started throwing punches. Luckily, Kevin managed to pull them apart and they both calmed down. Franklin says to Leon, we're sitting on a gold mine and you're nickel and diming me over the small stuff. But Leon wouldn't listen to Franklin, so they both got mad and stormed off. This unexpected thing passed, and the next day, Franklin took Kevin to the park to check out the results, to see how people were reacting to their new product. As soon as they arrived at the park, the 2 saw the people who had received free samples yesterday already waiting for them, just because they wanted to be the first ones to get the goods. Seeing this scene unfold, Franklin knew his dream of building his business zone was about to become a reality. After slinging some product for a while, Franklin raked in a bunch of cash and was heading home to whip up some more. But when he got home to just grab a drink, he saw his backyard was a total disaster. Taking a closer look, he saw Leon lying on the ground, seriously injured. Leon told Franklin that Lenny did this, and Franklin rushed to call an ambulance. When he returned, Leon reminded him to quickly hide the white powder. Hearing this, Franklin was stunned, as he had forgotten about something so important. If someone was shot, the cops would come to investigate. Franklin sprinted into the house at lightning speed and stuffed all the remaining products into a backpack, running back outside and looking around. He had no idea where to hide it. Seeing his neighbor's window open, he quickly crawled inside and stashed the backpack in the closet. Then he hurried back out to check on Leon's injuries. Daring to mess with his sworn brother, Franklin swore to make Lenny pay dearly. To get revenge for Leon, he immediately went to find Crane, demanding that she set up a meeting with Lenny's underling Ray Ray. Crane was suddenly being ordered around by Franklin and felt confused. She didn't understand why she had to listen to Franklin. Franklin told Crane that if she could get Ray Ray to come out, he would supply her with higher quality drugs. This made Crane seriously reconsider. Scene change, Franklin and Ray Ray meet at a diner. Ray Ray didn't know why Franklin was looking for him. He said that Franklin hit Lenny first and trashed Lenny's place, so it was only normal for Lenny to get revenge. Franklin pointed to the scar on his head and said that if they hadn't made the first move, none of this crap would have happened. Then he warned Ray Ray that his neighbor was a cop. He had seen two guys frequently sneaking around nearby, and even wanted Franklin to go to the police station to identify them. Hearing this, Ray Ray was stunned. He didn't want to go to jail, so he asked Franklin what he wanted. "You wanted to talk to me today?" Franklin said he didn't come to talk. "Then what are we here for?" Franklin replied, "We're here to talk business because that's what we have in common, right?" After the business talk wrapped up, Ray Ray walked out of the diner in a daze. What exactly did Franklin say to him? The young black man looked at the pile of cash on the table and cracked a satisfied smile. This was the kind of sales volume the new drug should be doing. They pulled in half a table full of money in just one day. Even so, close friends still gotta get that 3%. His uncle asked Franklin what percentage of the profit he could get. His nephew could give him 10%. That was already very generous. They went back and forth haggling, and his uncle floated 25% as a fair split. "All right, fine. That's my guy." Franklin's career was taking off like a rocket, but his mom was facing the risk of losing her job. It turned out she and the company had some conflicts. Now her boss was even refusing to write her a letter of recommendation for another job. Unexpectedly, Franklin pulled out a thick stack of cash from his pocket and told his mom to just take some time off. Right now, the thing he had the most of was money. Back in his room, Franklin packed up all his stuff, ready to go all in on building his empire. He might not have come from much, but he had a burning desire to make it big. That day, Franklin went to pick up some products from the drug kingpin Drexler. Both sides were making bank, so it was all smooth sailing. But then his uncle started complaining that Drexler's stuff was too pricey. He said now that demand was up, Drexler should lower the price a bit. Little did he know, he had accidentally pissed Drexler off. "I gotta remind you who's the boss around here." As a result, Drexler jacked up the price. Franklin knew how he operated, so he just had to eat the cost. After the three of them left, his uncle suggested sending someone to watch the place. Just 3 days of surveillance, and they'd know who Drexler's supplier was. Then they could contact the supplier directly and probably get a better price than Drexler's. Franklin didn't say a word, just turned around and left. After that, he went to visit Leon, who had just been discharged from the hospital. Looking at Leon's limbs, it seemed like he'd need to rest and recover for a while longer. To make things smoother for cooking up the new drug, the whole crew rented out a house. It was convenient for making the product, and they could stash it there, too. As the group was checking out the place, Franklin suddenly got a text from Ray Ray. Looks like his plan was starting to work. Next up, they headed to a super secret location. Not long after, a car pulled up to where they were. The guy who showed up was Ray Ray. After both sides got out of their cars, they dragged Lenny out of the trunk. The same guy who nearly put Leon in a permanent sleep. Seeing Franklin, Lenny seemed to know what was coming. Having gone through so many hardships, Franklin's heart had also matured a lot. He took out a stack of cash and threw it to Ray Ray, saying that working with him meant never having to worry about money, but he needed to know if he could trust him. After these tempting words, Ray Ray's eyes gradually became firmer. He picked up a knife from the ground, but when it came time to act, he hesitated a bit. Franklin pulled out a gun to give him a choice. Finally, under Franklin's threat, Ray Ray used the knife to finish off his good boss. Tonight, Franklin showed his power for the first time. From then on, this city had an area that belonged solely to him. Every member of Franklin's crew was a responsible person, but while they were taking a break, a snack food truck was parked on the Black People's Street. Who's got money? Do you have money? There's no such thing as a free lunch, kids. Bunch of broke-ass people. Don't touch my truck. Hey, from now on, whenever you pass by the street, you gotta stop. Whatever these kids want, you get it for them to eat, and I'll cover the cost later. Franklin, relying on his sheer guts, built his empire in Los Angeles. He controlled all the drug dealing on the black community streets and also had a super secure distribution network. They'd stash the drugs in chip bags and then transport them using a mobile snack truck. They'd hand out free snacks to the kids and, at the same time, sell drugs to those who needed them. After a day's work, they'd carry off trash bags full of money. This cash was taken to the warehouse by core members. Finally, Franklin could fulfill his dream of counting money until his hands cramped up. At this point, money was just numbers to him. Then, one day, he went to Kingpin Drexler's place again to pick up a product. Now, Franklin's business was booming. Even Drexler had to reevaluate this young man. Suddenly, a henchman ran in, followed by a large number of police officers. Seeing this, Franklin quickly pulled Leon and ran. Leon couldn't run fast enough and was caught on the spot. Franklin, having made it out, had no choice but to retreat for now. After getting back, he and his uncle went to find a famous lawyer in the area. Based on Franklin's detailed description, the lawyer told him that the person caught by the police was charged with a very serious crime, and the bail was set at $50,000. In those days, that was more money than most people made in their whole life, but for them, it was nothing. Very quickly, Leon was bailed out, and this is also a typical characteristic of California. Here, with money, you can do whatever you want. Franklin definitely wouldn't abandon any of his brothers. Little did he know that when Drexler was arrested and thrown in jail, a colossal conspiracy was about to fall right on Franklin's head. Was it an opportunity or a catastrophic disaster? It all depended on how Franklin would handle it. As it turned out, Drexler was an undercover CIA operative. They were in the underworld constantly dealing drugs, which meant Drexler's product was supplied by the CIA. And the money collected from these illegal transactions would be used by Congress to fund wars overseas. What was the reason for this? Perhaps we don't need to say much. Very quickly, Special Agent Teddy received a call from his superior. Because Drexler was in jail, there was a huge sum of money, $20 million, that needed to be covered immediately. His superior ordered him to figure out a solution ASAP. And just like that, Teddy set his sights on Franklin, whose business was booming. That day, Franklin was preparing to go out and have some fun. He was speeding down a dark road, but a second later, a car recklessly pulled out in front of him. The driver who caused the accident quickly got out to check on the situation. Seeing that Franklin was still conscious, he tossed him, then put a chloroform-soaked rag over his face, knocking him out. When Franklin woke up and looked at his surroundings, he was dazed and confused, not knowing what had happened. When he turned his head, he discovered that his good buddy had also been brought there. Only then did Franklin realize this was a premeditated accident. Very quickly, a man entered the room. This man was a CIA special agent. He pointed a gun at Franklin's head and asked if Franklin knew who he was. But at this point, Franklin was scared out of his mind and could hardly think straight, let alone guess the guy's identity. Teddy was extremely disappointed in Franklin, so he pressed the gun against Franklin's good buddy. Teddy again asked Franklin if he knew who he was. Seeing his good buddy's life on the line, Franklin finally figured out Teddy's identity. He was Drexler's supplier. Teddy was overjoyed. It seemed this kid wasn't a total lost cause. Turns out, this was a test Teddy had for Franklin. Since Drexler was arrested, Teddy had lost his distributor, so he targeted Franklin. At this moment, Franklin had a sudden realization. He recognized a huge opportunity right in front of him. Doing business directly with the supplier could multiply their income. Franklin told Teddy that he could move 10 kilos of drugs per week, and his business was constantly growing. These words made Teddy's eyes light up. After some smooth talking, the two sides finally struck a deal. Little did they know that this partnership would, in the not-so-distant future, create an incredibly formidable force. After getting out, Franklin wasn't in a hurry to go home. He was extremely curious to see how Teddy transported the product. Teddy opened Franklin's eyes. It seemed he had been too modest. Seeing Franklin acting like a curious child, Teddy decided to take his new partner for a little ride. However, Franklin had no idea that during his disappearance, something big had happened with his family. Kevin's underlings were selling retail on the street when a woman demanded to meet their boss and bought up all the products they had. The two underlings completely forgot Franklin's instructions at this moment. Do not sell to Mexicans or white people. Before leaving, the woman left her business card. In just a short time, she arrived at the Mexican gang's territory. She said there was a new drug selling like hotcakes in the black neighborhoods, and this could very likely become a threat to their business in the future. From that day on, the Mexicans decided to give Franklin's crew a little warning to show them who was the boss in Los Angeles. A man stormed into the black people's street, flashing a scornful grin at the drug dealers on the roadside. Two young guys didn't even have time to react before they were stabbed repeatedly. Another guy pulled out a gun, but the attacker didn't even bother to dodge, charging forward and stabbing him right in the neck. Just like that, the two drug dealers were skewered to death on the spot. The next day, Kevin got word that his underlings had been wiped out and rushed to find his crew. It's true that if you're patient once, 9 people will walk all over you. Everyone immediately grabbed their weapons, ready to avenge their fallen brothers. Today, no matter what, he would make the Mexicans pay. The whole crew went to the Mexicans' territory, but after waiting for half a day, no one showed up. Kevin immediately wanted to charge in. Right then, Franklin arrived just in time and ordered them to stop this crazy act. After getting back home, Franklin flew into a rage. He was only gone for half a day, and such a huge mess happened. Franklin scolded everyone, asking why they couldn't be a bit calmer. If the other side dared to come to their turf and attack, they had enough confidence. You guys just rushing into their territory like that is walking straight into the lion's den. After calming down, Franklin finally asked what had happened. He learned that a woman had left a business card that morning, and then that night the incident occurred. Franklin called the number on the card. After the person on the other end picked up, Franklin questioned why his men were attacked right after her visit. The woman on the other end was stunned. "Are you sure?" Franklin said. "What do you mean, am I sure? 2 of my guys are dead, and you're asking me if I'm sure." The woman kept pretending she wasn't involved. "Who are you?" "Lucia. Do you know who killed our guys?" "I'm not sure yet." Lucia said she could investigate, and then the two sides arranged a meeting place. Lucia knew that only by resolving the misunderstanding could they have a chance to cooperate, because Franklin was no longer a naive kid. The next day, the two sides met at the agreed location. The man accompanying Lucia saw Franklin and was very surprised. Wasn't this the young black man he had saved from the Mexicans? He never expected the guy to be doing so well now. After some small talk, Franklin and Lucia went to talk privately. Franklin's attitude was firm. He had a very good resource in his hands, and if they wanted to cooperate, she had to help him find the culprit. Lucia said she knew who was behind it, the one who killed his men. While he is alive, if any of you touches him, there will be an army of Mexicans coming after you and anyone you know. Franklin insisted, saying that before they could cooperate, he had to avenge his fallen brothers. Lucia understood Franklin's meaning. She asked for a little more time and said she would do her best to come up with an agreement that satisfied both sides. The two sides temporarily reached an agreement, but Kevin went on strike and refused to work. The people who killed their brothers, what were they going to do about that? Franklin said Lucia would give them a clear explanation, but Kevin still wouldn't let it go, criticizing Franklin for becoming a boss and still having to live so. Timidly and submissively, Leon quickly stepped in between them, using his eyes to say that they were brothers and shouldn't hurt their relationship. Just like that, the two of them left, still fuming. That day, Special Agent Teddy arranged to meet Franklin at a cemetery. This was the first time the two sides had worked together. The two of them one handing over money, the other handing over goods. Quickly and decisively, Franklin went from small-scale dealing to expanding his business operations. Now that Franklin had a stable supply, production was no longer an issue, but Franklin's uncle worried about how they were going to sell so much product. As the business grew, so did Franklin's ambition. From the incident with his underlings, he realized his shortcomings, and a crazy idea suddenly popped into his head: to form a fully armed private army. Since Franklin had been making waves recently, he had caught the attention of many powerful groups. This made the people in Franklin's crew extremely worried. Franklin immediately went to meet a mercenary his uncle knew, asking him to use his connections to get him a shipment of weapons. After that, Franklin summoned all his underlings to a secret location and gave each of them a gun. Franklin had only one requirement for his crew: if anyone threatened them, they were to decisively draw their guns and shoot back. If anyone used their weapons for unjust actions, it would be equivalent to betraying the organization. Through a period of training, this private armed force gradually took shape. Franklin's crew was now strong enough to have a solid foothold in Los Angeles. Just as he got back, Franklin accidentally saw Drexler, who had just been released from prison, walking on the street. He had intentionally come here to find him. Drexler wasn't angry about Franklin finding a new partner, because he firmly believed that in the future, the two of them would still work together happily as before. From this, it's clear that Franklin's status in Los Angeles was now much higher than before. Previously, Franklin risked his life to beg for a partnership with Drexler, and now the guy was coming to Franklin, asking to collaborate. Naturally, Franklin didn't agree to this request because he had already found a supplier. Drexler wasn't pushy either. He wrote down his address and phone number, told Franklin to think it over carefully, and then left. After Drexler left, Franklin went to meet Teddy from the CIA, asking him how to handle the situation. Teddy was also very surprised. When Drexler was arrested, his house was full of drugs and weapons. So how could he have gotten out of jail so quickly? It seemed he and the CIA had reached some kind of agreement. This messed up Teddy's plan. To sell things properly, the two of them decided to go talk to Drexler. The next day, they went to the address Drexler had provided and found him eating steak. Teddy wanted to talk to him in private. Faced with the supplier who had suddenly kicked him out of the game, Drexler was naturally very angry. When Teddy told him that Franklin was now handling the drug business, they should discuss a different kind of partnership. Every year, they had to spend a huge amount of money to fund the war, so Teddy suggested that he could supply Drexler with military-grade weapons. This also brought in extremely high profits, so naturally, Drexler had no reason to refuse. Just like that, the two sides happily shook hands and continued their cooperation. As for Franklin, the person who had essentially taken his position, Drexler didn't hold a grudge. Deep down, he still felt a fondness for the young man, and their collaboration had been enjoyable. Seeing Drexler like this made Franklin a little scared. After getting back, Franklin was in a good mood, playing cards with his uncle. But he had no idea that he wouldn't be smiling for much longer because, on another side of the city, something huge had happened. Even Franklin, on the Black People's Street, was implicated. Two groups of Mexicans were in the middle of a transaction when a dispute suddenly broke out over the issue of who was the boss of this area. Gustavo advised the bald guy not to act tough on his turf, but the bald guy suddenly pulled out a knife, and both sides drew their weapons. Seeing that the other side kept cursing, Gustavo couldn't hold back anymore. After this incident, they knew they were likely to be targeted for assassination. They were well aware of the Mexican gang's power. Sure enough, the next day, the other side sent people to their doorstep to demand answers, questioning them about their underlying who came to make a deal the night before. Lucia didn't answer directly. The people who came weren't fools. They immediately pointed their guns at the two of them. The boss lady leading the group told them to go outside first. She would stay behind to talk to Lucia in private. While the two were chatting, the boss lady immediately exposed Lucia's lie. She couldn't believe Lucia had dared to deceive her. She swore she would make Lucia pay dearly. Lucia was terrified. To protect her own life, she quickly said she could get her hands on the formula for the new drug. When she did, she would offer it to the boss lady with both hands. Hearing this, the boss lady gave Lucia another chance, but also warned her, "If you dare to play games, it won't just be you who dies. I'll kill your whole family. From here to Mexico, Everyone who shares your blood will die. Faced with the boss lady, Lucia didn't dare to talk back even a little. Later that night, Lucia arranged to meet with Franklin. They wanted to exchange the murderer who killed Franklin's men, along with $1 million, for Franklin's formula for the new drug. Lucia told Franklin about their current situation, hoping he would lend a hand. Unexpectedly, Franklin decisively refused them because the formula for the new drug was his fastest path to dominating the underworld. He absolutely couldn't let anyone else know about it. After hastily saying goodbye to the two, Franklin left. But he didn't realize that this very conversation almost pushed him into an abyss of no return. And the two, after being rejected, didn't give up on getting the formula. They went to find Franklin's good buddy, Kevin, hoping to get something from him. "We have something for you. Want to know who killed your men? We can take you to him, tell you where he is and how to catch him." "Why would you do that?" "Because we want Franklin's production formula." It turned out these two wanted Kevin to betray Franklin. On one side was revenge for his men, and on the other was betraying his good brother. For a moment, Kevin didn't know what to choose. Lucia wasn't pushy either. She just told him to think it over carefully, left her phone number, and then departed. This young black man, relying on his unique production method, was making a killing in Los Angeles. He had a huge ambition: to expand his drug business to the outside world, just like McDonald's opening stores everywhere. "This is my life's dream, but dreams are always getting stuck." No matter how much he thought about it, Franklin could never have imagined that at the most crucial moment of his life, his best friend, Kevin, would betray him. It turned out that to find the murderer who killed his cousin, Kevin traded Franklin's new drug production method with Lucia. To show their sincerity, the two of them took Kevin to a park, saying the murderer was an underling of the Mexicans. Every weekend afternoon, he would have 3 hours to visit his relatives, so this was the perfect time to take revenge. After learning the whereabouts of the killer, Kevin personally taught Lucia Franklin's new drug production method. Having obtained the production method, Lucia went to see the boss lady. From now on, the bad blood between her and the Mexican gang was over. Just as she left, the spy who was always by Lucia's side realized the time had come and notified the police to close in. Faced with this criminal, the spies showed no mercy. Lucia was arrested, and to lessen her sentence, she suddenly ratted out Franklin. What the police wanted most was to clean up the drug dealers in Los Angeles, so naturally, they wouldn't pass up this golden opportunity. Just then, Lucia's phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed it was Franklin. After answering the phone, Franklin asked what Kevin had told her and how Kevin had known the information about the killer. He had just heard from Leon that Kevin had left the group alone to find the killer and take revenge. Franklin immediately guessed that Lucia was behind this, and that this would cause conflict between Franklin's group and the Mexican gang. To avoid a bloodbath, Franklin urgently asked where Kevin was. On the other end of the line, the police signaled Lucia to tell the truth, instructing her to give Franklin the address of the park where the killer usually went every weekend. The police just needed to wait until everyone was there and then swoop in to catch them all. After getting the location, Franklin immediately rushed over. Leon and Franklin arrived at the same time. He kept trying to reason with Kevin, telling him that before they were strong enough, they had to be patient to stabilize the situation. Right now, if they just killed a Mexican underling, they would storm into the black people's street to get revenge. But at this moment, Kevin was consumed by rage. Even if he had to go against Franklin's crew, today he was determined to eliminate the killer and avenge his cousin. Seeing that Kevin wouldn't listen, Franklin knew that if the killer died today, everything he had worked so hard to build would be destroyed in an instant. His friends and family would also be in danger. Kevin still wouldn't listen and pulled out his gun, firing a shot that narrowly missed. Seeing Kevin still wanted to continue his attack, Franklin had no other choice but to shoot his friend. The police lying in ambush nearby heard the gunshot and immediately rushed to the scene. Leon had no time to worry about anything else. He quickly pulled Franklin away from this dangerous place. And Kevin, because he was shot in the artery, stopped breathing in no time. After escaping, Franklin was filled with remorse. Little did he know that this was just a lesson on the path to becoming the strongest. Back at home, the two of them hid in a room. Having encountered this kind of situation for the first time, Franklin didn't know what to do, so he called his uncle to come and discuss how to deal with it. Since a murder had now occurred, his uncle said the only thing they could do was run away and wait for things to calm down. Franklin didn't have time to think. He had no choice but to abandon his business, not knowing when he would be able to return. That night, before running away, Franklin wanted to see his mother one last time. He secretly ran back home. The two of them hugged each other tightly, but before they could even say a few words, they heard footsteps outside. He was about to escape through the back door when a large number of police officers surrounded him. Franklin was caught red-handed and taken away in a police car as the neighbors watched. The story reached its climax. At the moment of Franklin's arrest, a notorious kingpin, rising from the lowest class, was about to be born. This young black man from a humble background once had the underworld in the palm of his hand. Now, betrayed by his closest friend, he is in jail. Being in this situation for the first time made Franklin scared and afraid to interact with others. He couldn't even keep his most beloved shoes. He clearly understood the principle that a hero doesn't mind suffering a temporary setback. Now, he could only think of every possible way to get bailed out and get his business back on track. Very quickly, the day of the trial arrived. The judge had just announced the bail amount when the prosecutor suddenly objected because Franklin was arrested while trying to flee. If Franklin were released on bail, he might not be able to be controlled. The judge denied Franklin's request for bail. After the trial ended, Franklin was taken to a shared cell. Just as he found his bunk, Franklin saw someone he knew was also there. This person was Ray, whose former boss Franklin had taken out. Then Ray introduced Franklin to the other guys behind him. "We live in the same neighborhood. We had a little conflict before, but later we made up and helped each other out." Seeing that Ray wasn't holding a grudge about what happened before, Franklin naturally didn't hold one against him either. But in the dead of night, Ray led two of his goons to beat Franklin up. Oh boy, it seems like Ray never thinks about the consequences of his actions. Franklin was beaten unconscious. Just like that, Franklin lay on the ground until the next morning. His family came to visit. His uncle saw how badly Franklin had been beaten. Leon promised to find a way to bail him out and also shared his prison experience with Franklin. "When you get back from here, when you return to your cell, grab the first guy you see, beat him up so they'll stay away from you, so they know you're not someone to mess with." After returning, Franklin went straight to his bunk. It seemed like he was in a terrible mood. That evening, Ray came looking for him again with his crew, but this time Franklin noticed them first. Suddenly, an inmate in their shared cell did something foolish. Seeing this, both sides had to stop what they were doing. This incident also made Franklin realize he couldn't stay in this place any longer. Otherwise, tomorrow he would end up like that cellmate. The next day, Franklin went to find the guy who had stolen his shoes. He didn't say a word and just punched the guy square in the face. Even when he was pulled away, he didn't let go. Just like that, Franklin was locked up in solitary confinement for fighting. After being released, he went straight to find Ray, acting as arrogant as before. "You asked me why I was arrested. I killed my best friend, but my people are still out there. They know your family lives on 48th Street. If any one of you even dares to touch me again, I'll wipe out your whole family." Ray wasn't convinced, but from then on, no one dared to bother Franklin while he was sleeping again. At the same time, Franklin's partner, Teddy, wasn't idle either. He used his position in the CIA to find a female officer in charge of this case, telling her to back off, all for the sake of the nation's mission. Right now, Franklin was a crucial link, and if she could go easy on him this time and get the police to drop the charges, Teddy promised to hand over all the drug manufacturers and dealers after the mission was completed. The female officer also knew she couldn't fight City Hall. She had no choice but to temporarily compromise. Just like that, Franklin was declared innocent and released. He went to the cemetery to visit Kevin's grave, reminiscing about the days they fought side by side, and Teddy resumed their partnership. With this big tree as his backing, Franklin knew he still had a long way to go. Through this experience, he also learned a painful lesson. To make things work without any setbacks, he had to become the most ruthless person. Only then could the business thrive in the long run. After getting out of jail, this young black man transformed into a drug kingpin overnight. The gang's business, under his leadership, grew rapidly. Not only did he buy a mansion for his mother, but he also opened his bar. You could say he had reached the top in one fell swoop. That evening, they were targeted by a group of people. They took up their weapons, preparing to rob the drug car parked in front of them. But as they were about to approach, they were shot dead before they could even react. The people who arrived were Leon and his crew. Franklin's group had grown into a gang, so naturally, they wouldn't allow such mistakes to happen. If anyone dared to rob the delivery vehicle, the ambush team nearby would immediately shoot them dead. Ruthless tactics were also a key factor in Franklin's rapid rise in status. On the other side, the driver who had narrowly escaped returned to base and recounted the whole ordeal to his comrades. They had kicked a hornet's nest, but their boss, Miller, wasn't scared at all. On the contrary, he was very excited. He even saw an opportunity in it. At the same time, Leon also reported what had just happened to Franklin. The other side's actions were an encroachment on their territory. Even though they hadn't suffered any losses, since someone dared to mess with them, Franklin would make these people pay dearly. So he ordered his subordinates. I want to know everything about them. Their base, their dealing spots, their production site. Also, who's behind them targeting our shipment. Franklin is planning to make an example out of those who are thinking about rebelling. The next day, Franklin's underlings had gathered all the information on the other side. As the old saying goes, know your enemy and know yourself, and you will win 100 battles. After receiving the intel, Franklin immediately made a battle plan. Tonight, they would eradicate that group at its roots. Just then, another underling ran in saying that the boss of the other group, Miller, wanted to meet with Franklin. Everyone was very surprised. Franklin, however, ordered him to come in. Very quickly, Miller entered the room. As soon as he got in, he stated his purpose. Considering you didn't lose any money or product, but 2 of my guys were killed, give me a chance to clear the slate. From now on, Miller would distribute for Franklin and also hand over the driver who escaped that day. Hearing this, Franklin immediately changed his mind. If the other side was willing to bow their heads and admit their mistake, he had no reason to refuse a piece of meat that was willingly offering itself. As for the driver who escaped the other day, Miller didn't need to worry. Franklin had already tracked down his address. That driver was going to die. Franklin's statement had 2 meanings. One, if Miller hadn't come here today, Miller would have ended up like that driver. 2, if Miller helped that driver, Franklin would make Miller and everyone Miller knew to die. No one could have imagined that Franklin, who was just a small-time punk a few months ago, now held such a high position. After seeing Miller off, that evening, Leon went to the driver's house. After spotting the target, he didn't hesitate to shoot. Those who offended them could forget about staying alive. But the next day, Franklin's uncle came to open the bar and found it in complete chaos. Who dared to cause trouble on Franklin's turf? His aunt told Franklin about it. After hearing about it, he was extremely displeased. After investigating, he found out that the person responsible was Kron. Franklin didn't react outwardly, but his attitude said it all. The next day, Kron died right in his own home. The police immediately sealed off the scene. At this time, Franklin was still conducting a transaction with his new client, Miller. Little did he know that due to his overly arrogant methods, a new conspiracy against him was underway. Officer Andre also lived on the Black People's Street and couldn't bear to sit by and let his hometown become so chaotic. So he requested a warrant from his superiors to conduct searches and arrest the drug dealers on the street where he lived. At the same time, Franklin went to visit his old partner, Drexler, asking him how to handle the money he had earned. Since Franklin was a person of color, he couldn't just take a large sum of money to the bank. If he did, the police would immediately arrest him for investigation. Drexler said to leave this matter to him. Before leaving, he also gave Franklin a warning. Don't get greedy. Once you do, they'll find your weakness and you'll lose your edge. That statement later turned out to be completely true. That day, Franklin's crew was at their base, checking out a map of the city, discussing their next move to expand their market and where they should grow. Right at this moment, Drexler arrived. It turned out he had come all the way here regarding the issue of storing the money for Franklin. He said he would take Franklin out to broaden his horizons, but they needed at least $1 million. Hearing this, Franklin seemed to be thinking something. Very quickly, he followed Drexler to that bank. But Drexler didn't directly take Franklin inside to deposit the money. Instead, he told Franklin to hang out here for 2 days because the employee who usually worked with Drexler at this bank was out. Franklin immediately knew Drexler was lying. He told Drexler to tell him the truth, or he would turn around and leave right away. Having no other choice, he had to tell the truth. Not long ago, he was transporting a shipment of weapons overseas. To save on transportation costs, he decided to take a shortcut. As a result, both his people and the goods disappeared. Now he didn't have enough money to pay for the shipment. To save his skin, he had to resort to this last-ditch effort. Considering Drexler had done him a favor, Franklin decided to lend him a hand. But Franklin didn't know that during his absence, something had happened back home. At this time, the police in Los Angeles had finished their preparations. They mobilized a large number of officers, preparing to sweep through the drug gangs in the black neighborhoods. The police surrounded and arrested the thugs here. They also raided Franklin's drug production site, arresting a large number of Franklin's men. Franklin's uncle was furious, cursing at the police, but the police pretended not to hear, even using a sledgehammer to destroy many household items. This series of actions made Franklin's uncle lose his temper. Faced with a large number of police officers surrounding him, even though Franklin's uncle was a big guy, he was still at a disadvantage. Right at this moment, the black police officer, Andre, walked in. Seeing the criminals being arrested brought a cold smile to his face. The next day, Franklin returned home. Learning what happened, he used all his connections to start bailing people out of jail. This large-scale police raid had severely damaged Franklin. What angered Franklin the most was that the drug production site had been sealed off by the police. Franklin went up to one of his underlings and asked if he had informed the police. The underling immediately denied it, saying they must have done something wrong. Hearing this, Franklin flew into a rage. He went over and punched the guy. If Franklin didn't have solid evidence, how could he wrongly accuse his men? Do you think I don't know about the stupid things you guys do? If you work seriously, we'll protect you always. But if you dare to betray us... It's not that Franklin was cruel to his people, but if he didn't eliminate the traitor today, everything he had would be destroyed. This action by Franklin also told everyone that the price of being a snitch was very high, and they definitely couldn't afford it. Afterward, his underling told Franklin that the black police officer, Andre, had targeted them. This raid was masterminded by Andre. Right at this moment, the phone rang. It turned out his uncle was being discharged from the hospital, and the whole family went to pick him up. When Franklin saw his uncle's current condition, he was livid with anger, swearing to make Andre pay dearly. What's worth mentioning is that Andre's daughter was Franklin's girlfriend. Faced with his future father-in-law, Franklin couldn't be too ruthless. He still had to find a way to handle things smoothly. Very quickly, he found an opportunity. That day, Andre went out to celebrate with his colleagues and coincidentally met a woman. The two felt an instant connection, as if they had known each other in a past life. However, Andre didn't know that the more beautiful a woman is, the better she is at lying. The next morning, Andre felt extremely uncomfortable all over. He looked at the glasses on the bed and felt something was off. When he opened the drawer, he discovered that his gun and badge were missing. At this moment, Officer Andre thought to himself that he had to call the police. This was a scam. At the same time, the woman from last night was hugging Franklin's aunt. After the embrace, she had someone escort her out, and Andre's gun and badge, which had gone missing, were now lying on the table. The whole group looked at them, pondering what to do next. It was clear that this was the gift Franklin had prepared for his future father-in-law. Naturally, what happened next was exactly as Franklin had predicted. Andre had lost his gun and badge, and the reason for their loss was extremely embarrassing, so his superiors suspended him pending an investigation. Without Andre hindering his business, Franklin quickly got back on track. Very soon, Special Agent Teddy found out that Franklin's production facility had been sealed off by the police. He went to meet Franklin and advised him to be a bit more discreet. If the local police can't manage you, then the military will step in. If things get to that point, even I won't be able to save you. But Franklin still believed in the saying, no risk, no reward. At this moment, Teddy realized that this young black man was becoming increasingly difficult to control. And Franklin, because he wanted to grow stronger, gave up all street-level dealing. Although small-scale, dealing brought in a lot of money, the quantity was limited. Franklin started targeting the big players in Los Angeles, using their resources to help him distribute his product, allowing him to take over the whole game. The next day, Franklin had just left his house when he encountered Andre. He flashed a knowing smile and then drove off. Andre immediately understood everything. He had been set up by these people. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. So that evening, he went to find his good buddy in the police department. "I want to take down Franklin. I want you to help me find his place, and then we'll take him down." When he got home, he hung the keys on the wall and noticed his daughter hadn't returned. So he lay on the sofa, waiting for her while dozing off. When he woke up and went into the bedroom, he still didn't see his daughter. She had never had a habit of staying out all night without coming home. Andre suddenly felt like something was wrong. He was about to go to her best friend's house to look for her when he saw the car keys on the wall were missing. He ran outside to check, and sure enough, the car was gone. In just one day, both his career and his family were in trouble. Andre was about to reach his breaking point. Even though he was a veteran police officer, at this moment, all Andre could do was call the police. After asking around everywhere, some people said they saw his daughter come home a little after 2 a.m., but she drove off not. Long after that, while everyone was wondering where Melody could be, a phone call came in. Andre's colleague answered the phone. It turned out that the missing car had been found, but the scene didn't look good. Andre's beloved car had been completely stripped. Then, he found a fingernail in the car, and he realized it was from Melody's new manicure. He was sure that his daughter's disappearance was related to people in the underworld. Andre was frantic. To quickly confirm whether his daughter was safe or not, he had to swallow his pride and go find Franklin, telling him that Melody hadn't come home all night last night. He relayed the whole story, hoping Franklin could use his connections to find Melody. Franklin neither refused nor agreed, but his eyes gradually turned colder. Everyone knew Melody was his girlfriend, and now someone had the audacity to play with fire. Even though Franklin's relationship with his future father-in-law was like water and oil, this had nothing to do with Melody. Franklin swore that no matter who the other person was, he would make them pay dearly. Franklin immediately ordered his men to search for Melody throughout the city. Very quickly, he received a report from his underlings. This morning, someone saw Leon's ex-girlfriend Wanda and Melody in the same car. This meant that only by finding Wanda could they find out where Melody was. Lately, Wanda had been constantly by Miller's side, so perhaps Miller also knew about this. But when they arrived, Miller, in order to avoid conflict with Leon, had already sent Wanda away long ago. After saying that, Miller led the two of them to a house, another drug-dealing spot. As soon as they walked inside, Franklin saw some clothes on the ground. He recognized them as Melody's. Seeing this, he immediately went to knock on the door. The person inside opened the door and warned Franklin to try knocking one more time. When he saw Franklin's angry face, the guy immediately lowered his voice. Franklin asked if he had seen two girls. "Seriously, you guys came here just to look for girls?" Franklin hurriedly went inside to check. After searching around, he found nothing. Just as he was feeling helpless, Franklin suddenly got a phone call. The person on the other end said they had found Melody, only that his girlfriend's condition wasn't very good. Consider yourselves lucky today. Rewind to last night, when Melody got home. Her dad was already asleep. She wanted to take her secret stash of money to buy some drugs, to be able to get back quickly. She even took her dad's car keys. Just as Melody arrived at the place to buy, a girl suddenly jumped into her car. This person was Wanda. Hearing that Melody wanted to buy some drugs, Wanda said she knew a place that sold them super cheap. Melody had no reason to refuse, so she drove away from this place. Coincidentally, this scene was witnessed by Franklin's underlings. Over on this side, the two girls arrived at a house in the middle of nowhere. Wanda went inside to buy the stuff, while Melody waited outside. Right then, something unexpected happened. A guy suddenly showed up, yanked Melody out of the car, and then hit the gas, speeding off. Wanda came out and found out Melody had just been jacked. She brushed it off and tried to comfort Melody, saying it was probably just a messed up prank. "Let's grab a bite. They'll probably bring the car back in a bit." The good times always fly by. Just as they were about to leave, Wanda eyed the necklace around Melody's neck. Wanda snatched the necklace, gave her a few bonus rough touches, and went inside, planning to trade it for some more drugs. But this meaningful necklace was worthless in the eyes of these thugs. At this moment, Melody came to her senses and ran inside. Not long after, Franklin arrived at a secret location. His underling said Melody and the other girl were inside. Going in, he found Melody huddled in a corner, frightened. Without a word, Franklin immediately pulled Melody into the car and sped off to take her back to her father. Andre, seeing his daughter was safe, was no longer worried. At this moment, Franklin asked himself, what was all this he was doing his whole life for? Very quickly, he had his answer. His dream had never changed. All the good things were just stepping stones on his path to success. Through his various contacts, Franklin found out that his close partner, Teddy, was working for the CIA. This meant their business dealings weren't sanctioned by Congress, and he could be killed at any time, so he had to be careful. But Franklin never expected that Teddy's rivals had sent in a female operative. She immediately went to find Andre, who was still quietly investigating Franklin. She revealed who she was and told Andre they had the same goal, to take down drug kingpins like Franklin. She explained that Franklin had powerful people protecting him, and her job was to give Andre a fair shot. Then, she left a piece of paper and walked away. Andre picked up the paper from the table and was shocked by what he saw. The next day, Andre followed the information on the paper to a deserted house. After making sure no one was inside, Andre pulled out a pair of bolt cutters over 3 feet long from his trunk. He cut the internet cable and the alarm system wires, then used the cutters to smash a window and break in. Once inside, Andre found a super thick steel door. He used the cutters again to break the lock on the door. He threw open the door, and his eyes were met with a room full of cash. It was obvious this was where Franklin stashed his dirty money, but this evidence alone wasn't enough. Next, Andre searched the whole house for evidence of Franklin's crimes, his missing gun, and his badge, but after searching for hours, he found nothing. Andre was furious and started trashing the place. Then, as if by some force, Andre suddenly discovered a shocking secret. Inside a drawer was a file on Franklin's investigation into Teddy. Andre was stunned by what he saw inside. He couldn't believe that the very people training the criminals he was trying so hard to destroy were from the CIA. This made him livid. It completely shattered Andre's worldview. No wonder even when Franklin was caught red-handed committing murder, he was still let go. As soon as Franklin got home, he saw that his house was in complete disarray. He quickly ran into the room where he kept his money. Seeing the money on the table was untouched, not a single bill missing, he had a bad feeling. He immediately ran to look for the files. Sure enough, his worries were realized. At the same time, Teddy found out something had happened. He immediately called Franklin. Teddy was panicked. Something's happened. Our operation's been compromised. Hearing this, Franklin asked what was going on, and he continued, I don't know. I'll let you know as soon as I have any information. Franklin, anxious, said, wait, someone just broke into my house. Could it be related? Teddy asked what the situation was like. Did they take anything? No. Teddy, relieved, told Franklin to lay low somewhere for a while, and that he would reach out to Franklin when things had calmed down. After hanging up, Franklin realized something. If Teddy didn't steal the files, then based on the scene where it looks like the person trashed a lot of stuff, it was clear that they had a personal vendetta. This person was likely his girlfriend's father, Andre. Elsewhere, Teddy immediately returned to base. He knew that the female operative standing before him was behind everything. He had a grand plan in motion, and he wouldn't allow anyone to disrupt it. I'm going to find a way to salvage this operation, and then I'm going to make sure you're isolated in a basement office doing meaningless work. Meanwhile, Franklin stormed into Andre's house and told him to put all the files on the table into a bag. At this point, he still didn't realize the severity of the situation. If this got out, all hell would break loose. But since Andre was his girlfriend's father, Franklin decided to give him a chance. Forget everything you saw, Andre. Take Melody and get out of here, and never come back. Andre retorted. Who are you trying to protect? Do you even know he doesn't give a damn about you? Franklin didn't answer directly but kept pleading. You have to leave Los Angeles forever, Andre. You have to disappear. That way, maybe both of us can survive. Andre was still stubborn, saying he'd report everything to his superiors the next day, officially tearing off the disguise they were all wrapped up in. Seeing Andre so uncooperative, Franklin had no choice but to take out his future father-in-law. Then, he wiped his fingerprints off the gun and staged the scene to look like Andre had taken his own life. From this moment on, Franklin was truly walking down a path of no return. Meanwhile, Franklin's good buddy, Leon, because of his ex-girlfriend, kept going to harass Miller and even tried to take over Miller's territory. Miller, taking a loss, went to Franklin, hoping to get a discount on the goods as compensation. Franklin told him if he wanted a lower price, he should go buy somewhere else. Moreover, don't bring this nonsense to threaten me. If you dare to lay a finger on Leon, I'll wipe out your whole family. Faced with Franklin's favoritism, Miller had no choice but to swallow her anger. After getting back, Franklin warned Leon if he kept going to cause trouble with Miller, he'd beat the crap out of Leon. Every time you go looking for trouble with that son of a bitch, I'm the one who ends up cleaning up your mess. You're not allowed on his turf anymore. Don't provoke his people, or else you can find another way to make a living. Leon was skeptical. You're kidding, right? Franklin said firmly. Of course not. As Franklin's operation grew bigger and bigger, his mentality changed a lot too. Over here, Melody found out about her father's death, and she was heartbroken. As soon as she got back to her bedroom, she noticed a small detail that only she would recognize. Every time Franklin came over, he never closed the window. After figuring everything out, she immediately went to find her father's colleague, Nick, who told him that Franklin had killed her father and asked for his help. That evening, Franklin was pulled over by a police car. It was none other than Nick. He drew his gun and ordered Franklin to put his hands on the steering wheel. But then, in a shocking twist, he suddenly got into the car and revealed that he knew Franklin had taken out Andre. Franklin thought he was a goner for sure, but unexpectedly, Nick changed his tune. He said that if Franklin could offer him a reasonable cut, he'd consider letting him live. Having money lets you do whatever you want. That's right, as long as you have enough money. I've got plenty of money. Just like that, Franklin temporarily escaped danger. After returning, Nick told Melody the results of her father's autopsy. The medical examiner ruled that he had taken his own life. Melody couldn't accept this answer. It looked like she'd have to rely on herself for everything. The day of the funeral soon arrived. Melody sat in a corner, staring intently at Franklin. A little while later, she ran out of the house. Franklin quickly followed, thinking Melody couldn't handle the pain of losing her father and wanting to comfort her. But the next second, his girlfriend turned around and fired a shot. Franklin realized things had gone south. It turned out Melody knew everything. He tried his best to crawl outside. His dream hadn't been realized yet. He didn't want to die here, but it seemed like fate was playing a cruel trick on him. After she was done, Melody casually tossed the gun aside, leaving Franklin to die inside the house. Was everything going to end here? Franklin vaguely drifted into a beautiful dream. If everything could start all over again, maybe there would be a happier ending. At this moment, Kevin was still alive. The three brothers were still happily joking around together on the street. Franklin also successfully finished high school and entered college life. His advisor was still like all the other white people, taking away his entire scholarship over a minor mistake. Special Agent Teddy was the person sent by the CIA to teach them. Because of his adaptability, Franklin's academic performance was outstanding. Teddy personally came to see him and said that after graduation, the doors of the CIA would always be wide open for Franklin. At this time, Melody's life hadn't been destroyed by drugs yet, and the two of them still maintained that pure and beautiful love. His aunt and uncle had a child and were living a happy and fulfilling life. His good buddy Leon also settled down. After marrying Wanda, they had an adorable child. Even though they didn't have much money, they lived a carefree life. These beautiful images were as fragile as soap bubbles, bursting with just a slight touch. The scene changed, and a severely injured Franklin finally woke up. It turned out his dad had found him just in time, which was how he narrowly escaped death. The time he was out cold was seriously long. His crew was running around like headless chickens, and other gangs moved in to grab their turf. His former partners were now pointing guns at each other. The whole neighborhood was a war zone, officially entering the most chaotic period ever. Franklin caught the basic situation from the news. From this, it was clear that Franklin's ambition wasn't crushed by this unexpected setback. His parents couldn't grasp his thinking. They had tons of cash now and could quit the underworld and start fresh. But Franklin saw it differently. If he walked away now, his dream would go up in smoke. He hadn't yet achieved his dream of building a powerful drug empire. His dad asked, "Do you see what's going on out there?" Franklin replied, "Yes, I do. That's why I can't leave now. I may not be able to control the situation, but I have to take everything back. I'm the chosen one, the only one. All those who betrayed me have only one way out, death." Franklin had a strong heart. Once again, he went to find Teddy, because this time both of them had suffered losses to varying degrees. Teddy was glad to see Franklin back on his feet, happy that he hadn't chosen the wrong person. Franklin, having gone through a life-or-death experience, decided to reveal everything to his partner. "I know you're with the CIA, and I know you're on a mission to raise money for the war. I'll do everything I can to help you, but I'm not your servant. In return, you have to help me with something. I'll find all the people who are threatening the stability of the situation, and then you help me deal with them. That's the only way to control things." Naturally, Teddy wouldn't refuse. Regardless of what the outcome would be, Franklin was mentally prepared. The era that belonged solely to him was about to begin. After his near-death experience, Franklin was determined to eliminate all the gangs that had caused trouble while he was recovering. He went to see his aunt to get the lowdown. After he was injured, Miller had been constantly fighting with the leader of another gang, resulting in a large number of casualties and disrupting the peace that the black neighborhood once had. For his former partners, Franklin decided to give them one last chance. First, he went to find Scully, asking him to stop. He could let go of everything that had happened before. However, Scully was resolute, saying he had to wipe out all of Miller's crew to avenge his fallen brothers. And over here, Miller also flatly refused. Between Miller and Scully, only one could survive. Seeing that they were unwilling to compromise, that night Franklin went to see Teddy, asking if he could stop the war between the two gangs. Even though Teddy was with the CIA, with a large-scale conflict like this, there was nothing he could do. If that were the case, Franklin would have to use his methods to solve the problem. Those two had damaged Franklin's interests, so they couldn't blame him for being ruthless. The next day, he went alone to Scully's territory, bringing a sniper rifle, and also asking if Scully wanted to buy the kinds of things he had. In the war between Scully and Miller, he would stand on Scully's side. If he wanted more weapons to win the battle, Franklin would take Scully to buy a shipment of weapons that night. Faced with Franklin's enthusiastic offer of help, Scully immediately agreed. But Scully couldn't have imagined that as soon as he got back, Franklin went to find Miller. He repeated the same words he had just said to Scully and Miller. He was preparing to use the trade as bait to lure Scully out. Then, Miller would bring people to ambush the surrounding area. Such a surprise attack would surely be able to wipe out Scully's gang. Miller also knew this was the most effective way to end the war, not realizing this was Franklin's plan to borrow a knife to kill someone. That night, both forces prepared their weapons. Miller's people hid inside cargo containers in advance to set up the ambush. Not long after, Scully arrived at the appointed place on time. As soon as he got there, he sensed danger. To answer the doubts in his heart, Scully fired his gun up at the sky, shattering the light bulb. Miller's men thought they had been discovered, so they immediately grabbed their guns and rushed outside, and the two sides clashed instantly. After returning, Franklin flew into a rage and scolded Miller's men for being brainless. If they had let Scully's group get any closer, they would have been dead for sure. The situation now was out of their hands. If Scully could survive tonight, he would come back for furious revenge. Franklin's crew said they wanted to immediately send people over there, determined to take out Scully, but Franklin refused. The situation was unclear now. If they rashly rushed in, they could very likely be attacked by both gangs. He wouldn't do something so stupid. So, he told his crew to fully arm themselves and wait for orders. Everything else would have to wait until he could get in touch with Miller. Then, he hurried back home to prepare for any eventuality. He told his parents to leave and go somewhere else to lay low. The next day, Franklin rushed to find Miller to ask about Scully's situation. Miller confidently said that she had already shot Scully dead, telling Franklin not to worry. Little did she know, Scully had already been brought back. Although he was shot, it wasn't fatal. From childhood to adulthood, Scully had never been deceived so badly. He secretly vowed to get revenge on Franklin, no matter the cost. How terrifying was this young black man on crutches? To eliminate the gang that was opposing him, he bribed the police, borrowing their hands to get rid of people. Then, Officer Nick led his men to check out the situation. The scene before them shocked them. Everywhere they looked, there were gang members fully armed. This was the place Franklin wanted Nick to destroy. The cops were so scared they broke out in a cold sweat. "We need to get out of this hellhole fast. Don't come to us with this nonsense. Let them decide their own life and death." Nick angrily went to find Franklin's dad, telling him to tell Franklin that the protection money would have to double from now on. If he played him again, he'd make sure Franklin's crew lost everything. If it weren't for the crowd, Nick would have already attacked Franklin's dad. From then on, his dad told Franklin everything. Franklin immediately arranged to meet Nick outside and warned him not to disturb his father again. "You want me to walk into my death?" "No, I just want to offer you a high-paying job. If you don't like it, that's fine, but I won't allow you to harass my family. Do you hear me? Or what? What else can you do to me?" Seeing Nick's attitude, Franklin knew this guy was no longer of any use. He just smiled at him and then left. The next day, Nick was called into the chief's office. "I don't know who you pissed off, or maybe they just don't like the look of you, but you have to get out of here and prepare to transfer to another department." Nick was stunned. He didn't realize Franklin had that much power. He didn't expect Franklin to be able to get someone to order the chief to transfer him, but by now it was too late to regret it. Finally, Franklin had dealt with this threat. That night, Leon was preparing to take his crew out to play when he unexpectedly ran into his ex-girlfriend, Wanda. Seeing her in such a sorry state, Leon couldn't help but pull out a stack of cash. He didn't realize this action would save his life. At this moment, Scully's gang arrived from afar. Leon's group didn't notice them. They started shooting wildly all over the place. After a gunfight, neither side suffered any casualties. Only poor Wanda, because she was warning Leon and didn't have time to escape, got hit by a bullet. If you were to say those two didn't have feelings for each other, that would be a lie. If Wanda hadn't betrayed him, maybe they would have been married by now. Leon immediately took Wanda to the hospital. Franklin, hearing the news, also rushed over. Leon blamed everything on Franklin. If it wasn't for Franklin wanting to kill Scully, why would he come looking for trouble with them? Now, it was unclear whether Wanda would live or die. To avenge his ex-girlfriend, Leon went to the most famous private investigator in the area, asking him to find out the whereabouts and weaknesses of his enemy. Since he didn't have a picture or a real name, only a nickname, Scully, the investigator said he didn't know where to start. The next second, Leon slammed a stack of cash on the table, and the investigator immediately said, "Let me see what I can do." The scene changed, and Scully was leading his crew, eating fried chicken on the side of the road. The private investigator took out his camera and started snapping pictures. Suddenly, one of the gang members looked in the investigator's direction, making him so scared he got goosebumps. Just then, a woman walked by. She must be an angel sent from heaven. It turned out the gang member hadn't noticed him at all. After some time investigating, the investigator finally found a place Scully frequented the most. Usually, he would walk in with a bag and come out empty-handed. Leon figured this was likely where he stashed his money. So, Leon took his crew to stake it out. They waited for what seemed like forever, but Scully never showed. Then, a middle-aged man suddenly walked by, and a car sped toward him, unable to stop in time. Leon realized these guys were Scully's men. He yelled for everyone to get down, and both sides started shooting wildly. The man selling water was unfortunate. Leon and his crew went down to check the situation and discovered there was someone else inside. He was walking and shooting continuously. Leon realized he had screwed up. He was originally sitting here waiting to take out Scully, but he unexpectedly ran into his henchmen. What's worse, there was a child and the guy's wife in the car. In gunfights between gangs, the local police usually turn a blind eye. Now Leon had shot a kid. He was sweating bullets. His accomplice quickly called Leon to run away. They went to a secluded place and burned the car to destroy the evidence. Leon handed a stack of cash to his comrade, telling him to go somewhere for a while until things blew over. At the same time, Scully arrived at the hospital. Seeing his wife's devastated state, he broke down in tears. The little girl who was shot by Leon earlier was Scully's daughter, and this woman was not only Scully's wife but also Miller's sister. This time, Leon had stirred up a hornet's nest. On the other hand, Franklin was discussing business when Miller barged in with his people. He had to get justice for his murdered niece. My niece was just murdered. You know, I had a falling out with my brother-in-law before, so I was a bit distant from my sister. But life always uses tragedy to bring people together. When my people cause trouble, I'll handle it myself. I'll personally deliver the perpetrator to your territory. I expect you to do the same. Miller's intention was crystal clear. If Franklin didn't hand over the person responsible, he would join forces with Scully and declare war on Franklin. Franklin was suddenly caught in a dilemma. If Franklin protected Leon, it meant declaring war on two major gangs. His uncle said that Leon had already branched out and formed his gang. There was no need to sacrifice others to protect Leon. Franklin wanted to know what leads the police had. If the police had evidence, Leon would be hunted by both the police and the underworld. If the cops don't have any evidence, no matter what, he has to protect his best friend. Right now, the most important thing is to find Leon. They quickly found Leon at a homeless encampment. It turns out that all the money he earned had been squandered by his family. Leon didn't have a single penny on him. Even running away was a huge problem. Franklin took Leon back to his place and told him not to use the phone or go outside during this time. Once the heat dies down, everything will be fine. Before he left, Leon asked Franklin to leave him a gun for self-defense. Franklin signaled to his uncle to give Leon a gun. Franklin treating Leon like this could be seen as doing right by him. But that night, two figures snuck into the house. These two were none other than Franklin and his uncle. They didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. They'd given Leon a chance to fire back earlier, but his gun was empty. Leon had a nightmare and suddenly sat up. He quickly checked the gun and confirmed it was working. Just then, he heard the sound of the door being locked. Outside, he looked through the window and saw that it was Franklin's mom. For Leon, she was like a second mother to him. You could say she watched him grow up. And Franklin's mom came to cut off Leon's signature curls because they made him too recognizable. Leon cried out in pain, not knowing when his hair would ever grow back. At the same time, Miller visited his sister and brother-in-law, the two of them putting aside their past grudges to temporarily join forces. Intelligence operative Teddy also came to see Franklin, saying the police had found Leon's fingerprints on the shell casings at the scene. Faced with the situation, Teddy is also helpless, not knowing what to do, and what's more, Franklin's entire crew is now considered accomplices. As long as Leon remains uncaught, the pressure on Franklin will only intensify. Everything has spiraled beyond their control. Under pressure from both the police and the forces of the underworld, what will Franklin decide? Meanwhile, Leon is feeling uneasy. He steps out into the hallway to get some air and happens to see a news report stating that he and his associates are wanted. When Franklin goes to find Leon, he discovers that he's vanished. At this moment, Leon sought refuge elsewhere, and as fate would have it, he ran into Scully's group. He immediately took off running for his life. Scully chased after him with a gun, determined to avenge his daughter today. At the critical moment, his uncle and Franklin drove up just in time to save Leon. This effectively meant that the two gangs were officially at war. That night, Miller came to find Franklin with his people, demanding that he hand over the person responsible. If not, after tonight, the two sides would fight until only one was left standing. You hand over Leon, and then I'll eliminate my brother-in-law. No! It can't be like this. You want to start a war over just one guy. Franklin fires back. This is what makes me different, Miller. I don't abandon my people. You know what I respect about you? You always keep business and personal life separate, and you never let emotions get involved in work. But now you're breaking your own rule. Seeing Franklin's firm stance, Miller orders his men to leave. After tonight, the two sides will be sworn enemies. The next day, Franklin went out and was stopped by the police right outside his door. They asked him where Leon was. He pretended not to know, asking, "Leon who? I don't know him." Seeing that Franklin wouldn't tell the truth, the police warned him, "I can throw you in jail anytime. I can just make up a reason. Now there's a little girl who's been murdered. Someone's got to pay for this. It was then that Franklin realized he had overlooked a crucial problem. He couldn't underestimate public opinion. He immediately went to find Leon, intending to let CJ, who was also wanted along with Leon, take the fall. This way, Leon could return to the underworld. Leon was utterly exhausted and finally agreed to this idea. So, Leon took Franklin to see CJ. He thought the storm had passed and he could continue to fight alongside his brothers again, but Franklin splashed him with a bucket of cold water. Little did he know, Franklin was about to throw a bucket of cold water on him. Franklin said, "We need you to take the rap and also deny that Leon fired the shots. Pin it on one of the Scully gang members who got wiped out that day. After that, I'll get the best lawyer to defend you and bail you out. What if it fails? At the very least, I'm looking at 50 years. Hearing the concern, Franklin reassured him. "If it comes to that, we'll take good care of your family. We'll give them $5,000 a month, and when you get out, you'll get another $250,000. After thinking it over, CJ knew Franklin and his crew were loyal and true, so he agreed to the deal. Just like that, they took CJ to the police station. The court quickly reached a verdict, and just as they predicted, CJ could walk free after paying bail. That evening, as soon as CJ walked out of jail, a woman called out to him. She said she was sent by Franklin to welcome him back. Hearing this, CJ thought Franklin was thoughtful, and he immediately got in the car with her to go to a place. At the same time, Franklin got a call from the lawyer saying CJ had already been picked up by someone else. He asked Franklin if he had paid the bail early. Franklin was bewildered, and suddenly he realized something was off. Franklin spent the whole night searching for CJ. Finally, he found CJ in front of his aunt's bar. He was already dead. When Leon heard the news, he flew into a rage. He had previously agreed to protect CJ. Now, his good brother ended up dead on the street. It was clear that Scully's gang was behind this. The only thing they felt good about was that Leon finally wouldn't have to run from the cops anymore. Leon gathered his men for a serious talk. These were the first guys Leon had taken under his wing since coming back to the game. Just then, a woman showed up and pointed a gun at Leon's head. Leon asked, "Hey, beautiful, can I help you with something?" The woman replied, $5,000 to take your head, dead or alive. I need that money." Just then, one of Leon's guys snuck up behind the woman and told her to drop the gun. Leon, not wanting any trouble, asked her if she had something she needed to talk about. She explained that her parents left and hadn't come back, and her two younger siblings hadn't had a decent meal in a long time. Hearing this, Leon, while still pointing his gun, secretly slipped her some cash. The uncle saw this and, pulling out his own money, asked her who gave her the order. The girl tells him that they found out the Scully group is putting up a bounty, and it's not just on Leon. All the key members of Franklin's group are on the list. Franklin's already freaking out about this, but before he can even deal with it, another problem hits. His mom calls him to come home for dinner. As soon as he gets there, his mom drops a bombshell. His dad has spilled everything they've been doing to a reporter from the New York Times. The reason for this is that at his dad's homeless shelter, a baby was abandoned, and judging by the baby's cries, the parents couldn't be far away. As soon as he stepped outside, he saw his dad sitting the boy against the wall. Getting closer, he found that the man had stopped breathing, still holding in his hand the newest and hottest product of his son. To prevent black people like himself from being destroyed by drugs, Franklin's father spoke out about the countless crimes of the CIA. Hearing this, Franklin became extremely angry. Not only was his dad unable to help, but now he was becoming a burden. "You're going to get us all killed. Don't you understand yet?" Franklin knew he had to stop this. If Teddy found out, everyone around him would be in danger. Soon enough, the story was published in a Los Angeles newspaper. Although the article didn't name names, everyone knew it was the CIA working with Franklin. As Franklin's sworn enemy, Miller quickly saw an opportunity. This leak must have something to do with Franklin. If the CIA took action against Franklin, could Miller have a chance to take his place? Meanwhile, Franklin was freaking out. Any one of them could be targeted by the CIA for revenge. They wanted Franklin to apologize to avoid dragging everyone else into this mess. Hearing this, Franklin blew up. "I'm the one in trouble, not you, not Auntie." His uncle pressed him, wanting to know what would happen to them. Franklin shot back, "Nothing's gonna happen, because I'm taking the heat for all of you. So just shut up and let me handle this, just like I've always cleaned up your messes before." As the guy in charge, Franklin has sacrificed a lot. For someone so young, his thinking is way beyond most people. To try to fix the situation, Franklin calls up the reporter who wrote the article and asks to meet. Franklin gives her a warning. Either she joins them, or she becomes a sacrifice in this fight. If she thinks she can escape an assassin, then she can go ahead and keep publishing. But it won't just be her. Her family will also get caught up in it. After saying this, Franklin gets up and leaves. But right now, the articles are not the only thing Franklin has to face. There's also the bounty put on Scully's wife. They weren't scared of the danger right in front of them. They were just afraid of capsizing in a ditch. The day of CJ's funeral arrived quickly, and the gang's key members showed up one by one. But unexpectedly, Scully's wife was watching them from a distance. This was a golden opportunity she couldn't pass up. Franklin was in the lead, with the gang's key players showing up in succession. Suddenly, a group of uninvited guests barged into the funeral. They opened fire on the core members, then hit the gas and sped off. Everyone was safe and unharmed, except for their aunt who took a bullet to the chest. They rushed her to the hospital for treatment. While waiting, Leon told Franklin he saw the shooter. It was Scully's wife, no doubt coming to avenge her daughter. It's very possible that they were behind CJ's death too. Not long after, Franklin got a text from Special Agent Teddy. They met up at a discreet location. Turns out, Teddy had read that news article and discovered something had happened on Franklin's end. While Teddy was scolding Franklin for leaking secrets, he noticed blood on Franklin's collar and learned that Franklin's aunt had been shot. Teddy's attitude softened immediately. He told Franklin to leave the reporter to him and to keep doing his thing, but absolutely under no circumstances was anyone to leak any more information. Before leaving, Teddy also told Franklin that from now on, he couldn't trust anyone. Just get through this period and they'll figure things out later. Franklin took those words to heart. After he got home, his new girlfriend started laying out a plan. For him, if he wanted to end this war, he should make peace with Miller. She said she'd try to convince her sister to call off the hit, and Franklin would just have to share his supply with Miller. Franklin stayed quiet for a long time, thinking things over, and then told his girlfriend he'd consider it. Leon, standing nearby, chimed in that Miller couldn't be trusted. This whole thing reminded him of Teddy's words. We can't trust him, can't trust anyone. Franklin had thought things through. He told Leon to make sure to stop his uncle from going after Scully for revenge. Then he told his girlfriend to answer Miller's call. If Miller could end this war, he'd agree to share his supply. At the same time, Teddy sent some guys to sneak into the reporter's house. But they didn't take her out, they just injected her with some kind of liquid. This time she would wake up tomorrow, but that might not be the case next time. Looks like Teddy was still pulling his punches. Right after Franklin's girlfriend got home, she immediately called Miller. He was going to give her the supply source, just needing her, to make Franklin believe she could get his sister to stop. I need the rest of the money, she said, and you have to make sure my little brother stays safe. After hanging up, she felt completely drained. Just then, a figure appeared right behind her. It was Franklin and his crew. Turns out, during their earlier conversation, Franklin sensed something was off with his girlfriend. Overhearing her call with Miller confirmed his suspicion. She was a mole planted next to him, and her goal was to steal his supply. Franklin still hadn't figured out how to deal with her, so he called security to head over there. At the same time, his uncle wanted to get revenge for his aunt. Franklin rushed to stop him, using every argument he could think of. He explained that Miller was already prepared, just waiting for them to rush in and get killed, and urged his uncle not to act rashly. But Franklin's uncle was beyond furious, completely losing it. Franklin had no choice but to block the car with his own body, and without a word, the two started fighting. Franklin's gunshot wound still hadn't healed, so after a few rounds there was no way he could win against his uncle. Franklin was beaten so badly, he couldn't even stand up. He told his uncle, I'll tell them I tried my best. Come on, hit me. Hearing this finally brought his uncle back to his senses. Revenge didn't necessarily require violence. If the enemy sent a spy to them, they would use this to their advantage and use her to feed false information to Miller. He told her, call him, seeing her plan fall apart. She had no choice but to follow his orders and called Miller. She told him Franklin agreed to hand over his supply, and they were to meet up under the bridge. Right after she hung up, it wasn't long before Miller showed up to confront her. Miller hadn't been a kingpin all these years for nothing. He already knew she had betrayed him. "You set me up, you're a fraud." Miller pulled out his gun, ready to kill her, but she suddenly stabbed Miller with a knife. Miller, totally enraged, was about to shoot when Franklin, who had been lying in wait nearby, took him down. Hearing the gunshot, Miller's guys outside thought their boss had fired. But a second later, they were all taken out. Turns out, they had anticipated Miller's every move. Knowing Miller was suspicious and definitely wouldn't show up at the meeting point, they ambushed him at Franklin's girlfriend's place, lying in wait. Miller thought he was smart, but he had to pay the price for his actions. After Leon's failure to eliminate the threat last time cost the gang dearly, Franklin wouldn't make the same mistake again. He decisively raised his hand and gave Miller a bullet. Just like that, Miller met his maker. As for his girlfriend who betrayed him, Franklin didn't take her life. Death could be spared, but living couldn't be forgiven. He said if she wanted her younger brother to live, she had to turn herself into the police and take all the blame. She'd better think it over and not disappoint him. With that, Franklin took his people and left. On this side, Scully's wife heard the news that her brother had been killed. One by one, her loved ones were being killed by Franklin. She grabbed an ashtray and smashed it over Scully's head. If he hadn't been afraid of Franklin, they could have joined forces with Miller and taken Franklin down. It seemed that if she wanted revenge, she'd have to take matters into her own hands. She immediately called the assassins, offering to double the reward if they took out Franklin's group, and telling them to act quickly. In the hospital, the aunt had pulled through and was out of danger. Franklin came to visit her and discuss how to deal with Scully. The aunt suggested hiring the assassins back. As long as he offered enough money, he would get the result he wanted. Franklin had a sudden realization. That night, Wanda went to find the two female assassins, telling them that she knew where Leon was. After the job was done, she demanded half the reward money. Everyone in the game knew she and Leon had split up. The two female assassins didn't suspect a thing, so Wanda led them to a secluded spot. As soon as they stopped, two other cars suddenly appeared, boxing them in from the front and back. That's when Franklin's crew showed up. Seeing Wanda being held captive, Franklin's group quickly explained that they just wanted to talk. They said if the two women felt they weren't, being sincere, they could leave at any time and that they meant no harm. "We know we caused this mess," they said. "Anyway, we've got plenty of money, so why don't you two come work for us? You two have skills and I have money. Working for me is way better than struggling out there. Plus, I'm offering you full-time pay." Franklin then tossed a stack of cash toward the two assassins. "Consider this your retainer." The two female assassins, won over by Franklin's straightforwardness and generosity, immediately said they were ready for any task. Franklin just smiled. Soon after, Scully's wife got a call. The two assassins told her they had found the person who killed her daughter. Scully's wife, hearing this, grabbed her weapon and rushed out. As soon as she arrived, she pulled out her gun, but the two female assassins quickly restrained her. She instantly got it and said, "However much they're paying you, I'll triple it." Tripling it isn't that much anyway. Scully's wife was also a woman with street smarts. She knew that surviving and leaving this place today would be nearly impossible. So she confronted them directly. "You killed my daughter and now you want to kill me too." Leon quickly apologized to her, saying that the situation that day was completely out of his control. He hoped he could get her forgiveness and offered her a chance to retire from life. But Scully's wife told Leon, "Even if I become a ghost, I won't forgive you." So Franklin's uncle helped her get her wish. Today, they had to learn their lesson. When you kill weeds, you pull out the roots. If Leon hadn't let anyone survive that day, they probably wouldn't be in so much trouble now. At the same time, that reporter lady who Teddy threatened started making trouble again. This time, she brought Franklin's dad to the radio station, spilling the beans to the public about everything, from what she'd experienced to how she'd been threatened. She also said that if the CIA didn't acknowledge these accusations and conduct an internal investigation, then tomorrow she would come back here and reveal the true identity of that operative to the entire public. Hearing this, Teddy flew into a rage. This was a direct challenge to him. That night, as the reporter was driving home, suddenly, someone who'd been driving on the road for years like her just dozed off. When she woke up, she found Agent Teddy standing in front of her. Realizing she was in immediate danger, she struggled with all her might. But there was no way Teddy would go easy on her, and he quickly sent her to the afterlife. After the reporter breathed her last, Teddy took the tape full of evidence and made it look like she had a car accident because of drunk driving. Turns out, this reporter had been constantly posting articles exposing the cooperation between the CIA and Franklin. Teddy had warned her multiple times, but it didn't work. In the end, he was out of options and had to silence her for good. The very next day, the news reported that the reporter had died in a traffic accident the day before. Everyone who knew the situation understood this was no coincidence. And Franklin's dad, who was the one giving her information, felt incredibly guilty when he received this news. So, he went to the radio station, fulfilling her unfinished wish. In an instant, a wave of public outcry erupted in Los Angeles, and Franklin was freaking out because of his dad's actions. He was risking everything to earn money and protect his family, and yet his father seemed hell-bent on taking him down. Teddy called, demanding that Franklin handle this immediately or else he wouldn't hold back. Franklin rushed to his dad's homeless shelter and told his assistant to get his dad on the phone right away. But the assistant stammered, saying that if his father wanted to contact him, he believed he would do so on his own. He didn't tell you who's bankrolling this place. The only reason you can be here playing sane is because I'm funding you, and this is all money I made from dealing drugs. Now tell me where he is. Seeing the assistant still wouldn't talk, Franklin immediately ordered the homeless shelter to be shut down. Under Franklin's wrath, the shelter was emptied in no time. He then told his dad's assistant that only when his dad came looking for him would he continue to invest in this place. After Franklin returned, Teddy called him again, telling Franklin to stop his dad immediately. If Teddy's true identity was exposed, everything would be beyond saving. When that time comes, I'll make you and your family, all of them, pay for this. You should know very well that the thing I hate the most is being threatened. Meanwhile, Franklin's dad returned home. He knew what would happen if he crossed the CIA, so he grabbed a gun for protection. Not long after, Franklin came back. His dad told him to call Teddy and tell him that he had his dad under control. Why do we have to do this? Because I have to end all of this, son. Are you crazy? That man is an extremely accomplished killer. You forgot that I used to do the same thing, didn't you? Franklin was utterly helpless. Why did his closest loved one have to go against him? Did he think that if he killed Teddy, the CIA would let them go? The answer was no way. Right then, a knock came from outside. It was none other than Scully. The father and son quickly found a place to hide. At this point, Scully had lost both his wife and daughter. He went crazy and stormed into Franklin's house alone, armed with a gun. Hearing footsteps approach, Franklin's dad decisively stepped out and pulled the trigger. Franklin immediately backed up his dad, attacked from both sides. Scully was hit and quickly fled the scene. Unfortunately, Franklin's dad was also shot in the shoulder. Franklin urged his dad to get to the hospital immediately. Even at this point, his dad still wanted him to call Teddy. Franklin refused, telling his dad to get out of there, and that he'd give him enough money to start over. Before he could finish, Franklin was knocked unconscious by his dad. Why did this happen? Was it out of conscience or moral depravity that a father would so heartlessly turn on his son? When Franklin came, he had no idea what was going on. He only saw his mom by his side. His walkie-talkie was also gone, taken by his dad. Franklin felt like something bad was about to happen and immediately called Teddy. Sure enough, his dad had set up a meeting with Teddy. Franklin quickly said, "If you still want to work with me, you can't lay a hand on my dad." But Teddy replied, "Your dad brought this on himself. However, because I respect you, I'll tell you where we're meeting. It's the place where we used to deal, the spot of our first transaction after you got shot. If I were you, I'd get here fast." Franklin's dad, not wanting to see more black people's lives ruined by drugs like his own, contacted a radio station to expose the CIA's dirty dealings. Teddy, out of respect for Franklin, tried to hold back. Now, Franklin's dad had initiated a meeting So of course, Teddy wouldn't pass up the chance. The two met at the agreed-upon location, and Franklin's dad pointed a gun at Teddy. "I thought you just wanted to talk." Franklin's dad replied, "That's right, as long as you can convince me." Teddy asked, "Because of that reporter?" "No, I came to see you to tell you directly." Franklin's dad said, "It's all over. You can no longer use my son to make money to fund your war. Let me and my family live a normal life." Teddy didn't agree with his viewpoint. Even though his son was only in his early 20s, he was now the biggest drug dealer in Los Angeles. If he didn't want to do it anymore, he could come to Teddy directly. The two argued back and forth, neither willing to make a move. Just then, Franklin arrived in the nick of time. Teddy told Franklin that the one who leaked the information to the media was his father. "I want you to take out the man who betrayed us." Hearing this, Franklin pointed a gun at his father, but in the end, he couldn't pull the trigger. "Looks like I'll have to do it myself." "Wait, hold on a minute. If you want to take him down, you'll have to take all of us out. Can't you show me some respect?" Franklin's mom stepped between the three of them, begging Teddy for a chance. She promised to take her husband far away and never return. She said her son had his mind and that they, as elders, shouldn't interfere in his business. Teddy considered for a moment. He knew that harming Franklin's dad now wouldn't do much, and it would be better to do Franklin a favor instead. Just like that, the incredibly tense situation was defused by Franklin's mom. After they got back, Franklin immediately sent his parents away to start a new life. Parting is always filled with sorrow, and who knows when they will see each other again. Sometimes you just have to learn to let go. Teddy, the special agent, was punished by the CIA because his cover was blown by Franklin's dad. To deal with the fallout, he had to leave town for a while to sort things out. When he finally got back to base, his aunt was out of the hospital. Because of all this, Franklin's uncle decided to go out on his own. Franklin's cooperation with the CIA made his uncle feel like he was in danger. No matter how much Franklin tried to convince them to stay, his aunt and uncle wouldn't change their minds. And Franklin's best friend, Leon, decided to leave him too. Franklin felt terrible inside. He took all the heat for them, but in the end, they still abandoned him. But in a way, it was for the best. At least now he didn't have any more baggage and could focus on building his empire. With his go-getter attitude, he created his drug network. His business had both legal and illegal sides. His girlfriend, Veronique, helped him manage his real estate business, while Franklin kept running his drug operation in the underworld, which made him a ton of money. The underworld business, under Franklin's leadership, was growing steadily, but where there are people, there's going to be conflict. That day, Rob, a buyer who worked for Franklin's crew, threw a party. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. Rob's good friend got into an argument with a young guy. Rob's friend, thinking he was safe on his buddy's turf, pulled out a gun to threaten the other guy. Rob, not wanting things to escalate, tried to stop his friend, but the young guy kept running his mouth, which made Rob's friend even angrier, so he turned around and fired the gun. Everyone freaked out and scattered. This was a big problem, because the victim was white. The next day, all of Los Angeles was in an uproar. All the newspapers and TV stations were covering the story. The police were not only going all out to catch the shooter, but they also raided tons of drug spots in Los Angeles. They absolutely would not tolerate any harm coming to white people. Meanwhile, Franklin and his crew arrived at Rob's place. He'd been partying all night and still didn't realize how serious the situation was from the night before. To get Rob out of the hot zone, Franklin took him to his own safe house and told him to lay low there for a while. Then, Franklin asked Rob's friend how much he knew about Franklin's dealings with the CIA. Rob said the other guy didn't know anything. "There's no way I would tell them about that." Franklin didn't doubt his people. Before leaving, Franklin told Rob that if he heard anything from the other guy, he needed to let him know immediately. His words were filled with a deadly seriousness. Back at their base, Leon and his uncle had also run into trouble. The large-scale police sweep caused them heavy losses. Before, all these black people dying didn't make a ripple, but now that it was a white person, the police were turning Los Angeles upside down. The next day, Rob heard back from his buddy. To make sure nothing went wrong, Franklin brought Peach along with him to the meeting place with Rob. They drove for a solid 7 hours to get there. Finally, they met up with Rob's buddy, who was on the run. Seeing Peach packing heat, He quickly grabbed the gun he had nearby. Franklin explained that she was his. Security. Once Peach stashed her weapon, Rob's friend relaxed a bit. He then led the three of them into a room, started packing his bags, and asked Franklin where he could take him to hide out. I'm thinking, maybe that CIA special agent you know could help me get a fake passport or something. Hearing this, Franklin's eyes immediately filled with a murderous intent. Rob, receiving the order, went to fire the gun. Facing his good brother, Rob couldn't bring himself to do it. The price of causing this situation couldn't be blamed on anyone. It was his fault for not keeping his mouth shut, causing his brother to meet disaster. Seeing Franklin's determined gaze, Rob knew there was no room for negotiation. He resolutely went to send his friend off. After that, the three went to a remote, desolate place, found a suitable spot, and began to dig a hole. At this moment, a ruthless thought appears in Franklin's mind. Anyone who affects his business, even if it's his brother, will meet only one end: death. Now, the only thing he can rely on the cooperation with the CIA. Ever since Agent Teddy got into trouble, he just vanished. But very quickly, the higher-ups sent another agent to take over Teddy's job. This guy named Grady. Franklin, looking to increase his profits, started haggling over the price with Grady. He said he could up the purchase quantity, buying 300 kilograms of drugs per week, but in return, he wanted the price reduced. From $10,000 a kilo to $9,000. Grady did a quick calculation. He'd be losing out on over $15 million a year. Although Franklin's offer to buy in bulk was tempting, Grady had to check with his superiors on this one. A few days later, they met up in Franklin's airplane hangar. Grady said he could agree to the price cut, but he had one condition. He then looked at the plane behind Franklin. I want your plane. Just kidding. Just take me for a spin. Franklin couldn't believe how easily the other guy agreed, so he immediately hopped on the plane and took Grady for a ride. He had to know that this little bit of happiness wouldn't last. That same day, Grady just got back to his mansion when he found an uninvited guest, none other than Special Agent Teddy. Turns out, ever since Grady took over, he'd been skimming a ton of cash. The amount of product being moved was going up and up, but the money Congress was getting kept going down. The CIA had no choice but to call Teddy back ASAP. Teddy was also extremely dissatisfied with Grady's corrupt actions, telling him there was still time to stop. No matter how much he had embezzled, Teddy could help him escape safely. He hoped not to see him again tomorrow morning. Immediately after, Teddy stood up and left. The next day, Grady locked all the doors in his house. He wasn't someone easily intimidated. He just took a sip of water to calm his fear when he fell headfirst to the ground. He desperately crawled outside, but the figure on the other side of the corridor filled him with despair. He never expected Teddy's methods to be so ruthless. I want you to know, we have no bad blood between us, but you haven't fulfilled your duties as an agent. Your corruption will cause many people to lose their lives. Meanwhile, Franklin was still in the dark about what had happened. He opened the door to find Teddy, who had been missing for a while, suddenly showing up. Teddy then told Franklin that, starting today, they would be working together again. As for Grady, Franklin would probably never see him again in this lifetime. Franklin wasn't surprised by this news. Before Teddy left, Franklin asked if the price he had previously negotiated with Grady still stood. 9 grand keys. He hoped Teddy could continue to work with him at that price. Keep it at 10 grand. Franklin froze in place. He had gone through a lot of trouble to negotiate the price down, and now, just like that, it was off because Teddy was back. Today was their first day doing business together again. They had barely exchanged a few words when suddenly a car came out of nowhere. The people inside rolled down the windows and started spraying bullets at Franklin's crew. The driver was hit and died instantly. Seeing this, everyone scrambled for cover behind the cars. Teddy, being a CIA agent, was a crack shot. He took out the other car's driver with a single bullet, but the enemy focused their fire on him, hitting him in the shoulder. Driven by a strong will to survive, Teddy crawled into a car and sped off through the hail of bullets. Just like that, Franklin's crew was left high and dry. Franklin yelled at Gustavo to get in the car, but as he was climbing in, he got shot. Franklin quickly jumped into the car himself, slammed on the gas, and peeled out. But these two had the worst luck ever. Their car engine gave out after just a short distance because it got shot up. Franklin had no choice but to pull over to the side of the road. carrying a few million in cash with him. This made them both extremely scared. They had no idea where these thugs had come from. Plus, they were holding a huge amount of cash, so everyone they saw felt like a bad guy. After this unexpected incident, the two went to a public phone booth. Franklin quickly called his uncle for help. Before his uncle could understand what was happening, a car sped towards them from the other end of the street. Hearing gunshots through the phone, Franklin knew his uncle was also being targeted by the same group. Right now, there are some thugs coming up behind him. He has no choice but to hang up on Gustavo, act like nothing's happening, grab the bag of money, and get out of there. But these guys are persistent like leeches, and they insist on checking Franklin's bag. He's out of options, so Franklin pulls out his gun, and the thugs immediately take off running. What he didn't expect is that one of them just wouldn't leave and stay there. Behind them, more and more thugs are gathering. The two of them, forgetting all about their image as big-time bosses, start running for their lives. After a chase, they run down into a basement and finally manage to shake off those thugs. Right then, Franklin realizes his gang has been targeted. The two of them sit in the basement, waiting for half a day, then leave the money there, ensuring their safety before they go. To figure out what's going on with the other side, they sneak into a civilian's house, planning to use the phone. But as soon as they get inside, they both get a huge jump scare. Oh man, that scared the crap out of them. However, Franklin is laughing and happy now. That's how miserably he'll be crying later. Franklin rushes to find a phone to call his uncle, completely oblivious to an old guy who appears behind him. The old man fires tranquilizer darts, one shot each. They work fast, and both of them immediately collapse to the ground. Not long after they wake up, they find themselves locked in a cage. Franklin looks over and almost has a heart attack from fright. Both of them are scared out of their minds. Now, they're just one cage away from a tiger. Looks like the homeowner is some kind of psycho to keep a wild animal in the house. The most important thing now is figuring out how to escape from this place. Hearing the shouts, an old man appears. Franklin quickly explains that he didn't mean any harm by coming into the house. He just wanted to borrow the phone for a call. If you let me out, I'll make it worth your while. Today, I've prepared a little snack for you. Hey, are you listening? I've got a ton of cash. I can give it all to you. Just open the cage door. Franklin's stunned. He can't believe this old guy isn't interested in money. The old man set on him, becoming the tiger's dinner. After saying that, he removes the partition between the man and the tiger, combining the two cages. But he keeps shaking it, and the partition won't budge. He takes a closer look and sees a belt tied around the top of the cage. Turns out Gustavo is a real pro in these situations. After waking up, he immediately spotted something off about this cage, so he used his belt to tie it shut, just in case. And what do you know? It worked. The old guy isn't giving up though. He grabs a ladder, planning to climb up and remove that partition. Gustavo, seeing his chance, kicks the cage, making the old man lose his balance and fall one leg into the cage. This time, they were done for. The tiger's dinner had been served right to his mouth. Franklin and Gustavo spot the key on the ground and try to reach it, but they're stuck. They can't do anything with it right in front of them. Gustavo comes up with a plan. He says he can lift the partition between the two cages, then Franklin can go to the other side to grab the key. Franklin bewilderedly asked why he had to go retrieve it. Gustavo explained that because he's dark, the tiger can't see him. Franklin wanted to argue, but realized his buddy had a point. The tiger was eating ravenously, paying no attention to the two men on this side. Franklin successfully retrieved the key, and they escaped danger. They ran outside, feeling incredibly lucky. Their joy was short-lived when they encountered the gang of thugs from earlier, demanding their money. Franklin panicked and lied, saying the money had been stolen. The thugs didn't believe them and dragged the two back to their base, where they started beating them up. However, neither of them would reveal where the money was, because once these guys got what they wanted, Franklin and Gustavo were as good as dead. Franklin's mind started racing. All right, I'll tell you guys, but if you want me to spill the beans, you gotta promise to let us go home. Fine, it's where you guys caught us, inside a cage, but we don't know which floor. We'll take you to find it. The opponents were also very smart. They had Franklin lead them alone, and once they got the money, they would immediately release Gustavo. Then Franklin took them back to the pervert's house. He pointed to the underground parking garage and said the money was down there. Seeing the cage was empty, they got a bit tense. The leader saw the owner's corpse and realized he had been tricked, immediately pulling out his gun and pointing it at Franklin. But it was too late. The two were immediately beaten by the tiger. And as for why the tiger didn't attack Franklin, it was probably because he was so dark the tiger really couldn't see him. Just like that, Franklin once again left that terrifying house, jacked the opponent's car parked outside, and then called his uncle and Leon to go rescue the others. At the thug's base, the people inside saw the car headlights outside, thinking their teammates had returned after a successful mission. As soon as they opened the door, Franklin's group rushed in, quickly taking control of the situation, rescuing Gustavo, and immediately returning to their territory. Once they got back and checked in, they found out that everyone had been attacked during the day, but who could know their movements so well? Franklin remembered that Peach had something to do today and didn't come. To be sure whether today's events were related to Peach, Franklin immediately went to the hiding place for the money, and it turned out the money here had been completely cleaned out. The only people who knew about this hiding place were two people, Franklin and the underling responsible for protecting Peach. It seemed like this time Franklin was betrayed by a close brother again. As it turned out, not long before, Peach witnessed Franklin killing his brother, which made his heart turn cold. If Franklin could even do that to his close brother, let alone a bodyguard like him. Thus a series of events occurred. Through investigation, they found out that Peach had fled Los Angeles, and the person cooperating to launch a large-scale attack on Franklin was named Kane. Franklin and Leon looked at each other. They immediately understood what was going on. The two hurriedly went to find Kane, who had just gotten out of prison, and asked if he was the one who attacked their gang. Kane didn't beat around the bush and immediately admitted to what he had done. Surprisingly, Franklin wasn't angry and even asked Kane why he didn't come to visit him after getting out of prison. This person was none other than Kevin's brother. After getting out of prison and hearing that Kevin had been taken out by Franklin, he teamed up with Peach to attack Franklin. Faced with the criticism from his best friend's brother, Franklin didn't know how to respond. Moreover, Kane said he wouldn't stop seeking revenge. After returning, Franklin talked about this with his uncle and aunt. His uncle said they must use strong measures to fight back. We murdered his brother, didn't take good care of his family, and now we want to eliminate him too? Leon's suggestion was to let him try to persuade Kane to join their gang's business. Franklin knew he was at fault in this matter, so he simply agreed. But at this time, Franklin not only had to deal with internal problems, but also faced pressure from the CIA. Special Agent Teddy arranged to meet Franklin at a parking lot. He was furious because Franklin's side had leaked information. Teddy told Franklin that starting today, the rules of their game were changing a bit. From now on, everything would be arranged by him, and the time and place of the transaction would be communicated to him a few minutes in advance. Second, only he was allowed to come to the transaction location alone, without bringing anyone else. The two were once very close partners, but now they were suspicious of each other. Franklin knew that this time it really was his fault, and he could only let Teddy change the rules. After returning, Leon said he had persuaded Kane to do business with them, but this made his aunt very dissatisfied. She was becoming increasingly unhappy with her nephew's way of doing things, so she bypassed Franklin and went directly to Teddy, wanting to get the goods directly from him. Since Teddy had recently been equally annoyed with Franklin's way of doing things, he agreed to his aunt's request. Upon learning of this, Franklin's uncle was very surprised. His aunt's actions were no different than biting the hand that feeds her. He told his aunt that Franklin was their family, and doing this was no different than declaring war on him, and he would never go against his nephew. His aunt told him to rest assured, and said that after the wedding, she would tell Franklin everything. Very quickly the day of the wedding arrived. It had been a long time since Franklin felt the feeling of the whole family gathered together. His eyes suddenly welled up with tears. His uncle and aunt, under the witness of the pastor, held their wedding ceremony. After the wedding ended, Franklin also thought through a lot of things. Before, he only did things his way, which caused his family to get dragged in, so he apologized to his uncle and aunt. However, his aunt said it was all too late. The source of this matter must be traced back to when the gang was attacked. Leon successfully persuaded their attacker, Kane, to join them in business. Franklin's aunt was extremely dissatisfied with his actions. She went to see Los Angeles police officer Buckley, spending $150,000 to bribe them, aiming to take out Kane at the right time. That day, Buckley's group, fully armed, arrived at Kane's territory. He continuously fired at Kane's people. Unfortunately, Kane was shot and killed. He thought getting the 150 grand would be easy, but suddenly Buckley received news that his partner had been killed. This was big trouble now. The incident had reached the higher-ups. If someone was killed during an operation that wasn't reported to superiors, Buckley would bear full responsibility. He was suspended from duty pending investigation and was also required by his superiors to take a urine test. But since he had been using drugs for a long time, of course, he couldn't take the test. So, Buckley turned against his superiors and left the police station. That evening, Buckley went to see the aunt, demanding that she pay the remaining amount. Unexpectedly, the aunt flatly refused because Kane was still alive and only suffered injuries that left him bedridden. Seeing that he was getting agitated, the aunt told him to come work for her. Whatever his salary was before, she would now pay him double. Just like that, the aunt was able to buy off Buckley. The next day, Leon came to find Franklin. He already knew about Kane's assassination attempt. This matter was related to his aunt, so he asked Franklin to step in and resolve it. "What do you want me to do? Make a big fuss, shut down my aunt's club, or declare war on my aunt and uncle?" Franklin said he had a lot of other things to do, so just let this matter go. Kane was persuaded by Leon to join, but now that Leon had a problem, no one cared, which made Leon feel very upset. At the same time, Teddy conducted the first transaction with the aunt. The two brazenly transacted with each other without going through Franklin, completely disregarding Franklin. After the transaction ended, Gustavo was extremely dissatisfied with Teddy's actions. If Franklin found out about this, it would cause internal conflict. Once the two sides went to war, no one would benefit, but with what Teddy knew about Franklin, he wouldn't easily turn on his own family. This time, Teddy had miscalculated. That evening, Franklin personally went to his aunt's house, expressing his agreement with her actions against Kane. After all, Kane had previously attacked them. Right now, Franklin just wanted to reconcile with his family, but at this moment, his aunt's words to Franklin were like a bolt from the blue. "Before we reconcile, you need to know something. I've contacted Teddy and got the right to get the goods directly from him." This was something Franklin could not accept because 90% of his drugs were sold through his aunt. Now that his aunt wanted to go out and do this on her own, it was no different than driving him to the end of the road, which would cause Franklin's business to plummet. His aunt said she didn't know what to do either. Franklin finally understood. Except for himself, he couldn't trust anyone, not even his own family. In a fit of anger, Franklin made a decision. "If you want to be the boss, then I'll grant your wish." After that, Franklin arranged to meet Teddy at a diner. He told Teddy straight up that he wanted out, separating Teddy's and his aunt's business. But Franklin was already deeply stuck in the mud, and his offer to wash his hands of it today would be the biggest mistake of his life. When Franklin was preparing to withdraw from the scene, he discovered that his account suddenly lost more than $70 million. Franklin knew this wasn't a legal deduction. Otherwise, he would have been in handcuffs long ago. And the only person capable of doing this was his close partner, Teddy. Franklin knew this was Teddy's punishment for him withdrawing from the business. "What are you going to do?" "I have to call Teddy back, have to cooperate with him again, or I'll kidnap him, torture him until he agrees." Seeing this thought from Franklin, his family immediately objected. His girlfriend told Franklin that if he did that, everyone would be retaliated against by the CIA. Having no other choice, Franklin had to go find Drexler. His account in Panama was only known to him. He must know what was going on. By the time Franklin arrived at Drexler's base, the place was already in ruins. Now the only way he could think of was to go back to working with Teddy. When the two got on a call, Teddy immediately realized Franklin's intentions. Teddy said Franklin could come back to work, but he had to get the goods from his aunt. Franklin didn't have the patience to beat around the bush. He told Teddy straight up to give him back his money. However, Teddy still pretended not to know anything. Hearing that the other party had no intention of returning his money, Franklin got angrier and angrier. So he warned Teddy, "If within 24 hours I don't get my money back, I swear to God I will spend all my time, use all the resources I have, to make sure that you and everyone you know will not live in peace. Then you should be careful. You think losing a little money is the end of it? Just you. Wait! Perhaps at this moment, Franklin's fate began to change. After returning home, Franklin made many calls before Gustavo finally answered. Franklin said all the money in his account was stolen by Teddy, and he hoped Gustavo could tell him Teddy's whereabouts. On the contrary, Gustavo advised Franklin to let it go. He has the CIA backing him, so he's always the winner. You can't beat him. After everything that happened, you're still letting him go? I have to protect my family. I wish you all the best. After hanging up the phone, Franklin finally understood what it meant to be pushed to the brink. Now his only hope was his aunt. That evening, the two met on the rooftop. Franklin wanted his aunt to help him arrange a meeting with Teddy, but she flatly refused. Even though his aunt knew what Teddy had done to Franklin, this made Franklin unable to hold back the anger in his heart any longer. If it weren't for his aunt stabbing him in the back, he wouldn't be in this situation. But at this moment, his aunt said he had already withdrawn from the scene, and she wouldn't do anything that would affect her business for him. Right after he said that, Franklin pulled out a gun and pointed it straight at his auntie. She asked, "Are you going to shoot your auntie?" Franklin said, "If it means getting my money back, I'd kill you 10 times over. Now, I need you to call Teddy." Suddenly, her henchman pointed a gun at Franklin's head. He didn't expect his auntie to be on guard against him. At this moment, their familial bond shattered completely. Even so, his auntie spared Franklin's life, showing respect to his uncle. From then on, the two were no longer indebted to each other. "If I ever see you again, I'll kill you." Franklin, who used to be a big shot in Los Angeles, lost everything overnight: his money, status, family, and friends. At just over 20 years old, he got a taste of how brutal society could be, betrayed by the person he trusted the most. At this moment, the seeds of hatred began to grow inside him. After returning home, he quickly said goodbye to his pregnant girlfriend. He told her that he had promised her a good life before and would make it happen, telling her to stay home and rest easy. After Franklin left, his girlfriend immediately picked up the phone and called a mysterious number. "Hello, it's me. I've known for a long time. I'm still in Los Angeles. I'm in a bit of trouble right now and need your help." At the same time, Franklin went to see 2 female assassins he had previously hired for a large sum of money. He was determined to get revenge immediately and couldn't wait another second. The 2 assassins pretended to be drunk and approached the door of his auntie's warehouse. When the guards weren't paying attention, the 2 quickly drew their guns and took them down. Franklin led the 2 assassins into the warehouse. What met their eyes was a stash full of drugs and cash. The 2 assassins, without even a moment of surprise, immediately started scooping the money into bags with Franklin. After that, Franklin went to another one of his auntie's warehouses, using his status as her nephew to gain the guards' trust. The 3 of them then proceeded to clean this place out too. Meanwhile, both his uncle and aunt received the news at the same time. Franklin immediately went to the hospital to find Kane, who had been shot and was now disabled. My aunt did this. After he was done, Franklin had just returned home when his mom came to him, asking if he was the one who robbed his aunt's stash house. Franklin stayed silent, which was a confession. Franklin's mom scolded him, asking how he could answer those 2. This made Franklin furious. "Why do I owe them an explanation? I did everything. I was the one who brought them in. I gave them the biggest cut, and how did they treat me? I gave up everything and ended up getting betrayed and stabbed in the back by them. Besides, this is between me and them. It's not your fault." He didn't know that his mom was no longer just a homemaker. She said she could help capture Teddy and then let him deal with it. Franklin thought his mom was just trying to comfort him, but she was serious. Back when she was in Cuba, she had some friends. What kind of friends? The KGB. Franklin was shocked to hear this. His mom's eyes didn't look like she was lying. It seemed like his mom had her connections in Cuba. "So, how about you help me wipe out those bastards? Let's get this show on the road." Franklin went through 3 years of ups and downs, from a small-time kid looking to sell some drugs to becoming a kingpin overnight, ruling the streets. But at the peak of his career, Franklin's most trusted auntie suddenly betrayed him, and his business partner Teddy took all the money he had saved up. In a fit of rage, Franklin robbed his auntie's stash house, and he silently swore to make everyone who betrayed him pay dearly. But first, he had to sell off all the goods stolen from his aunt's warehouse to gather enough money for an all-or-nothing showdown with Teddy. So, Franklin went to find his old buyers. Ever since Franklin was kicked out of the underworld, this guy had been doing business with his aunt. But if you're skilled enough, nothing's impossible. Franklin, offering a price of 10 grand a kilo, successfully opened up his sales channel, even promising a 2% cut to anyone who bought 100 kilos. Using this method, he could quickly reach his goal of making money. After that, Franklin met a guy who was rumored to be incredibly well-connected, with eyes and ears all over the world. Franklin put a bounty on Peach, offering 250 grand to anyone who could capture him, dead or alive. And if anyone could get back the $5 million that was stolen from him, he'd pay them a 30% commission. You could say Franklin was putting up everything he had left. But the most important target was still Teddy, the one who'd robbed him of his entire fortune. Franklin couldn't find Teddy, so he had to ask this well-connected guy to help him find where Teddy's family lived. At the same time, his uncle and aunt were just finishing calculating their losses. Franklin had robbed most of their inventory and cash, leaving them unable to operate. Left with no other choice, his aunt had to ask Teddy for help, wanting him to front her a shipment. "We were robbed." Teddy asked the aunt what happened. Who did it? Franklin. Someone took all the money in his account. He needs a lifeline, and it's clear that lifeline is us. His aunt didn't know that the person who emptied Franklin's account was Teddy. After returning home, his uncle quickly contacted his buyers, but they told him that they had already found a new source with lower prices. That's when his uncle realized that Franklin had taken his stash and was now stealing his customers. In a rage, his uncle contacted Franklin. "Now you want to put all the blame on your aunt and me? Your wife betrayed me and is making deals with my supplier. Now I want to take back what's mine. Is there anything wrong with that?" "Franklin, if you don't return the stolen goods to your aunt and me, you know what will happen, you little punk. Come and get your revenge then. I'll play this game with you two until the end." The uncle was so refuted that he had nothing to say. It was his wife who was at fault first. The aunt, seeing that his resolve was a bit shaken, told him about how Franklin had pointed a gun at her earlier. Hearing this, his uncle made up his mind to have it out with Franklin, once and for all. That night, Franklin sent the two female assassins to make a deal with a customer. Everything was going according to plan until an unexpected incident happened on their way home. A police car suddenly blocked their way. The two had just finished a deal. The car had no drugs, only a bag of money. Men thought nothing of it, saying it would be okay. But then, the cop insisted that they both get out of the car for a check. Once they were out, Franklin's uncle showed up. Turns out, the cop was on the uncle's payroll. The uncle asked the two female assassins where Franklin was hiding the stolen goods and money. "We don't know," they said. "He stashed it in a new spot that nobody knows about." Seeing the assassin wasn't going to crack, Franklin's uncle immediately punched her hard. After that, things quickly spiraled out of control. No matter how much they interrogated her, the assassin wouldn't talk. Franklin's uncle then started pistol whipping her, hitting her again and again with the butt of his gun. The crowd of onlookers kept growing, and with no other choice, the uncle had to leave for the time being. Before leaving, he told them, "Tell my nephew that I did this. Until I get my stuff back, I won't stop." After his people got into trouble, Franklin immediately rushed to the hospital. But when he got there, he was informed that the victim had passed away. He decided to go see his uncle to get to the bottom of this. When Franklin's mom found out about this, she rushed over to try to mediate. On one side was her son, and on the other was her brother. She didn't want to see them become enemies. "Do you think going to war with your uncle will get you back everything? Nobody can stand in my way. This is exactly what Teddy wants, for us to kill each other off, so he can sit back and reap the rewards." His mom told Franklin to wait for her word. She would give him an answer that would satisfy him. After returning home, she went to see her brother and cooked him a table full of all his favorite childhood dishes. After a hearty meal and some drinks, she started to bring up the subject of Franklin. "You and Franklin are the last two men in our family, your blood relatives. Why do you have to fight each other?" After being persuaded by Franklin's mom, the two agreed to meet at a diner. Franklin said, "Even though I jacked your stuff, Last night you jacked my money from the sale, and you killed one of my guys, so we're even. But his uncle still wouldn't let it go. I took care of you since you were a little kid, and yet you dared to point a gun at your auntie? This was something his uncle couldn't accept. He criticized Franklin, asking when he had turned into this kind of person. Hearing this, Franklin immediately snapped. He told his uncle, "Everything we have, I earned by risking my life. The two of you just stood behind me and enjoyed the spoils, and I was always the one to step up and solve every problem. Then, when the business finally got stable, your lowlife wife went behind our backs and stole my supplier. Who do you think you're talking to? Touch me again, I dare you. You want to see what I can do? Go ahead, kill me. Then everything will be over." What was supposed to be a reconciliation talk turned into this. Franklin's heart was shattered. It was clear that they were the ones who backstabbed him, yet now they were putting all the blame on him. If it weren't for the fact that they were blood-related, how could Franklin have let them live until now? He didn't blame anyone else, only himself for bringing the wrong people in. He had no one to blame but himself for all of this. At the same time, Leon, who hadn't been seen for a long time, finally showed up. At this point, he still didn't know that something huge had happened back home. He just saw that everyone in the city was carrying weapons, like a war could break out at any moment. Leon looked at his buddy with a puzzled expression. To sum it up, during the time he was gone, Franklin and his aunt and uncle had a falling out. Ever since their failed attempt at reconciliation, things had gotten progressively worse. First, his aunt and uncle were attacked while they were on their honeymoon. Then, they retaliated by attacking Franklin's real estate company. Next, Franklin attacked his auntie's club. The fighting went back and forth all day. All of Los Angeles was divided into two factions because of them, one group following his aunt and uncle, the other following Franklin. After learning about the internal gang war, Leon decided to be the middleman and try to restore the peace they had before. He went to his territory, but the place had already been taken over by his former underlings. As the boss, Leon didn't get any respect. He silently made a note of this. After that, he brought some African specialties to his uncle's territory, saying it was a wedding gift for him and Wanda. The uncle told him to just say what he had to say. I don't know if I should say it or not." "Then don't say it, kid." Seeing that the uncle was tense, Leon changed direction and went to find Franklin. As soon as he entered the house, he was shocked by the scene inside. He couldn't believe that an uncle could do this to his nephew. The two brothers, who hadn't seen each other in a long time, started talking about the past. Ever since they entered this business, they knew this day would come. They just didn't expect it to come so soon, nor did they expect the people to drag them down into the mud would be their own family. Leon advised Franklin to let everything go and said, "Let's go to Africa and enjoy the sunshine together. I have no way out anymore. Bro, I know you're trying to find a way, but listen to me. If you want to stay here and get involved in this nonsense, you have to choose a side. If not, then take your wife and get out of here while you still can." Hearing this, Leon realized his thinking was too naive. It seemed that if he wanted his words to carry weight, he needed a power equal to the other side. So that night, Leon went to find his old underling, intentionally provoking him into personally fixing the light bulb in front of his house. Leon's tone was like he was ordering around a subordinate, and naturally, the other guy wasn't going to take it lying down. The next day, Leon found workers to fix all the streetlights in the area, which, as expected, really ticked off the guy. That night, Dion shot out all the streetlights, and finally, Leon found his chance to make a move. The two sides quickly started fighting. The area was full of onlookers, but nobody dared to intervene in a fight between the former boss and the current boss. Dion gained the upper hand and started mocking Leon, but then Leon landed a kick right in his groin, instantly changing the situation. Then Leon turned around and added another punch, sending Dion tumbling to the ground. With that little skill, how can you be the boss around here? This is my turf. Leon used to fight to announce his return. Very quickly, Leon's former underlings started coming back, and now he was the boss of the whole gang. Anyone else wants to come? Didn't you all want to be the boss? Now I'm giving you a chance. Faced with the long-standing boss, no one dared to act out in front of him. After all, Leon was once known for being ruthless, and just like that, he successfully took back his power. From then on, no matter which side he chose or if he stayed neutral, He could openly make his own decisions. Meanwhile, Franklin, looking to make a comeback, went to see Kane, who had just recovered and was about to be discharged, hoping to use Kane's influence to quickly rebuild his power. Kane, of course, didn't refuse this big shot. Franklin, having been successful before, knew that the most important thing now was to secure his supply lines, so he asked to see the drug production process because this place would directly affect the operation of an organization. Arriving at the control room, Franklin immediately sized up the situation, seeing everyone gathered together, eating and drinking without a care in the world. He turned off the music, kicked out everyone who wasn't involved, and then laid down his rules. From now on, this place operates 24 hours a day. You guys figure out your breaks, but production doesn't stop. Keep this place running continuously, understood? But Franklin's words were ignored by those people like a passing breeze. The person in charge said that it wasn't his turn to be throwing his weight around here. Franklin thought to himself, "There's someone who dares to oppose me?" Franklin immediately grabbed him by the head and shoved it towards the stove. Even though he wasn't what he used to be, he still wasn't someone these punks could afford to offend. In a fit of anger, he warned everyone, "Anyone who wants to make big money needs to work seriously. That's how you'll get rich. If you can't do that, then get the hell out of here." The underlings saw Franklin's ruthlessness and were scared out of their minds. Who would dare to work for him now? They quickly ran out. The person in charge went directly to Kane, wanting him to stand up for him. But Kane told the person in charge, "Now Franklin has full authority to make decisions for me. I've been too lenient with you all before. From now on, follow Franklin's rules or get the hell out. I don't keep deadbeats around." The person in charge got angrier and angrier, and in a fit of rage, he went to Franklin's uncle's base and revealed the location of Franklin and Kane. The next day, the two were in the drug lab when a hail of bullets came flying in. They barely managed to take cover in a safe spot. Seeing the attacker, Franklin suddenly realized that it was the person in charge that he had disciplined yesterday. He finally understood the meaning of, when cutting grass, you have to pull out the roots. The two of them sneaked out the back door and were then picked up by a trusted underling, escaping the area. Once they reached a safe hideout, Franklin told Kane to be careful, as he had to go out and take care of some business. Turns out, the man Franklin had previously hired to find someone had gotten a lead. Franklin flew to Kansas and found an old man. Then, he called the old man's son. His son was none other than Teddy, the one who had swiped over $70 million from him. An extremely cordial conversation was inevitable. "I'm in beautiful Kansas City. Do you have any fun recommendations for me? Or should I invite your dad out for a meal? Of course, I need to get my money back first to be able to do that. So, what should you do now? If I don't pay you, you'll kill him, right? That trick won't work on me. My account is still the same one you stole the money from. Just return the money to me. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't pay you." Seeing that Teddy was still making excuses, Franklin picked up a knife and held it to Teddy's dad's throat. Teddy immediately panicked. "What are you doing? Do you want to talk to him? Cherish this opportunity, Teddy. Talk to your dad." "Dad, can you hear me?" "No, you're too late. Transfer the money back to me now. If not, next I'll kill your daughter and then everyone you love until the blood flows like a river, just like your dad right now." After that, Franklin lit a fire, erasing all traces, even if the guy was from the CIA. If he dared to steal his money, he would pay the price just like everyone else. After returning, Franklin called his mom and Leon, telling them that they needed to stick together 24/7 lately, as Teddy would most likely come for revenge. But before Teddy could even get his revenge, something big happened at Franklin's place. This elegant and beautiful woman handed her gun to the security guard and then prepared to get on her horse. Little did she know that disaster was about to strike. Right then, gunshots rang out from outside, startling the horse and throwing Franklin's Annie to the ground. She instinctively reached for her waistband, intending to draw her gun, only to remember that she had just given it to the guard. As she got up, she was surrounded by thugs. The attackers were underlings of Kane's enemy, and she knew that today, even if she grew wings, she wouldn't escape. The scene changes, and Franklin's Anne is taken to an abandoned warehouse. Seeing the woman who almost crippled him, this guy is furiously venting his anger. Knowing the feud between Franklin and his aunt, he calls Franklin over to return the favor. After receiving the news, Franklin immediately arrives at the scene. At Franklin's request, Kane leads his men out of the room. No matter what, there's no way Franklin's aunt is getting out of this alive. After everyone leaves, Franklin forces his aunt to admit her wrongdoing for backstabbing him. Only then would he give her a less painful death. "It's all your fault that I ended up like this." Even at this point, his aunt still showed no remorse. Franklin turned around and prepared to leave. Seeing Franklin about to go, his aunt quickly called out, saying she could help him find his archenemy, Teddy. But it was all too late. Earlier, Franklin had already bought off Teddy's partner, Gustavo. Because Teddy's father was in trouble, Teddy's personality had changed drastically. To escape safely, Gustavo had already moved his family out of there and decided to help Franklin deal with Teddy, giving Franklin back a substantial sum of money. And just like that, the two sides joined forces. His aunt thought she was an important bargaining chip for Franklin, but now, in Franklin's eyes, she wasn't worth a dime. On the way home, he thought a lot. Although his aunt had betrayed him, they were still family. Franklin couldn't bear it, so he called his uncle. Franklin's uncle was someone who deeply loved his wife, so he immediately rushed to the scene. Franklin had temporarily allied with Kane, but his aunt and Kane had bad blood between them. Surely, Kane wouldn't spare his aunt just because of Franklin. Franklin planned to reconcile with his uncle and get her out first, then figure things out later. Franklin drove back to the warehouse. In a secluded spot, Franklin opened the trunk and let his uncle out. The guards didn't even have time to react before they were taken out on the spot. Then, he opened the door for Leon and his crew, and the whole gang sneaked into the compound. Kane's underlings saw Franklin coming, so they didn't suspect anything until a second later when all hell broke loose. After an intense firefight, the underlings outside were all taken out. Worried about his wife's safety, his uncle picked up a gun and stormed inside, killing the underling inside with one shot before kicking the door open. Seeing his wife being held hostage by Kane, Franklin's uncle didn't dare to act rashly. Kane said, "Today, you spare my life. After I walk out of this door, I'll return her to you." While Franklin's uncle was thinking, Kane pushed the aunt out. She ran to the side and then heard gunshots. She rushed over to see, and both of them were shot in vital spots, dying instantly. At this moment, Franklin's group entered and his uncle breathed his last on the ground. Franklin couldn't believe it. The two sides had been at each other's throats for so long, but in the end, they still shared the same blood. At this moment, Franklin truly felt remorse. He shouldn't have entered this business in the first place. If he hadn't, his uncle wouldn't have met such an end. All of this seemed to foreshadow that Franklin wouldn't have a good ending either. At a large gang-style funeral, Franklin and his aunt, who had been at odds for a good part of the show, finally reconciled. The price being Franklin's uncle leaving them forever. His aunt decided to help Franklin lure Teddy out to officially end it all. With his aunt's help, Franklin was even more confident of victory. After that, Franklin called Gustavo over and they went to his aunt's house to discuss how to deal with Teddy. That night, his aunt called Teddy, saying she could help him capture Franklin. The condition was that for every kilo of drugs sold afterward, she would get $1,000. Teddy immediately agreed. He never would have imagined that at this moment his aunt was sitting with Franklin, discussing how to deal with him. In this ruse, Gustavo would play a crucial role. If anything happened to Gustavo, Franklin would be doomed. With things at this point, the three of them had no choice but to risk it all. The next day, Franklin told his pregnant girlfriend, "If I don't come back today, don't wait for me. You have to take Mom and leave this place forever." Then he went to the meeting place with his aunt and told her to vent all her anger on him. Franklin's aunt didn't hold back, beating Franklin senseless, because only then would Teddy believe it was real. After getting ready, everyone prepared to set off. Gustavo received the signal and called Franklin, reporting that everything was going smoothly. But Gustavo didn't know that he had been targeted by the DEA. Right after he hung up, he was arrested by the police. On this side, Franklin, upon receiving the confirmation, immediately took action. His aunt called Teddy, saying she had captured Franklin. However, Teddy was extremely cautious, telling her to just leave Franklin at the previously agreed upon location. He would be there a bit later. Their plan was completely ruined, but Franklin thought it was worth the risk. As long as Gustavo could show up, he was sure he'd be all right. Very quickly, his aunt brought people to the prearranged location, throwing Franklin with his hands and feet bound there. They waited until midnight, but Teddy was still nowhere to be seen. This made Franklin feel uneasy. A while later, a car arrived. What Franklin couldn't believe was that Gustavo wasn't with Teddy. This was a big problem. Franklin looked around, but there was no one else in sight. Realizing the danger, Franklin quickly begged Teddy for forgiveness, even saying he knew a lot of secrets. But how could Teddy give him a chance? Franklin was taken to an abandoned warehouse, and his whole body was hung up in the air. Teddy, nearby, prepared his tools and took out a syringe. To survive, Franklin kept begging, "If you let me go, I guarantee you'll never see me again. If you struggle, you'll die in agony. But this will only feel like a mosquito bite, and then you'll fall asleep." Franklin had no chance to fight back anymore. At the critical moment, Gustavo suddenly appeared. Behind Gustavo was a KGB deep cover operative in Los Angeles, named Ruben. He was asked by Franklin's mom to oversee everything. Just now, Gustavo was taken away by the police, but he was rescued by Ruben along the way. How could a few police officers be a match for a KGB operative? That's how we got to the scene we have right now. Teddy knew the other guy was a KGB operative. In this situation, he had zero chance of fighting back, so he voluntarily threw his weapon on the ground. The KGB operative told Gustavo to handcuff Teddy to a forklift. "I still have a gun on my ankle." Naturally, the two people's actions couldn't escape Ruben's eyes. He told Gustavo to bring the gun over. While bending down, Gustavo suddenly lunged at Ruben. Gustavo didn't know if the person in front of him was a friend or a foe. To avoid jeopardizing his escape plan, Gustavo, who was once a boxer, quickly overpowered Ruben with a few moves, leaving him incapacitated. Teddy, seeing that the situation was under control, told Gustavo to uncuff him. Gustavo hesitated for a moment, but ultimately decided to save Franklin. Only then did Teddy realize that Gustavo had betrayed him. But now it was all too late. The roles were reversed, and naturally, Franklin wouldn't go easy on Teddy. Before killing Teddy, he still had to pry his mouth open and get back his $70 million. This young black man, to retrieve his tens of millions of dollars, played a game with a CIA operative. He took the bullets out of the gun, leaving only one in. When dealing with someone this professionally trained, regular interrogation methods definitely wouldn't work. Today, Franklin was going to play a more exciting game. Teddy suddenly remembered that Franklin was very concerned about that huge sum of money, and figured Franklin wouldn't risk losing it. Teddy suspected that Franklin's gun was full of blanks. Franklin proved him wrong. By firing a shot into the air, he then loaded the bullet back into the chamber, preparing for a new round. At this moment, Franklin's mom showed up to stop him. She had some things she wanted to clear up. After Franklin went outside, she questioned Teddy about why he had killed Franklin's dad back then, even though she had already taken her husband to Cuba to live out his days. Turns out, she investigated and found that on the day her husband disappeared, Teddy had shown up in Cuba, unexpectedly. Teddy said her husband wasn't dead, but was locked up somewhere by him. He said if she let him go, he would tell her where her husband was. Of course, Franklin's mom didn't believe Teddy's nonsense, but a sliver of hope appeared in her heart. On the other side, Franklin's interrogation was getting nowhere. His girlfriend then suggested to him that there was nothing more terrifying than the pain of having your skin and flesh cut off. So, Franklin grabbed a bottle of oil and went up to Teddy, probing for a while, but Teddy still showed no intention of opening his mouth. "Then don't blame me for being ruthless." Franklin took the pot of boiling oil, thousands of degrees hot, and slowly poured it onto Teddy. The agonizing screams were so intense that even hearing them made you feel the pain. Teddy couldn't stand this bone-deep agony any longer and begged Franklin to spare him, offering to split the money with him. Seeing a chance to get at least some of his money back, Franklin didn't refuse. They agreed to make the exchange in a public place. Franklin called Teddy's superior, saying he'd release Teddy and also hand over a KGB operative. Both sides immediately agreed to the deal. Franklin's mom, worried about her son, insisted on going with him. Soon enough, the two sides met up in the park. Teddy's superior, eager to catch the spy, agreed to let Teddy return the money to Franklin. As soon as the call ended, Franklin's mom asked Teddy, "Where's my husband?" Teddy responded, "Are you kidding me? I was just messing with you. I shot him twice, then I dumped his body." Little did Teddy know that he'd pay for his lie with his life. His smug face enraged Franklin's mom, and not letting him get away with it, she fired her gun. Franklin was stunned. He was this close to becoming a big shot. Again, Franklin rushed over to check the situation, telling Teddy to say the password before dying. But it was all too late. Franklin's mom knelt on the ground. Hearing the police sirens getting closer, his mom refused to leave. With no other choice, Franklin had to run first. After his mom was arrested, Franklin fell into the most difficult situation he had ever faced. Franklin's mom pleaded guilty to murder charges. In court, she also exposed the CIA for creating puppets to reap huge profits from the illegal drug trade. The judge immediately revoked her right to speak and sentenced her to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. On the other hand, the real estate business managed by his girlfriend was also facing difficulties. Due to a lack of financial support, the company was facing bankruptcy and closure. Even if they sold all their assets, they would still be heavily in debt. Not even 3 days later, Franklin's girlfriend vanished, and on top of that, she cleaned out the last of the money in Franklin's account, leaving him with absolutely nothing, not even a shred of dignity. The big banks that used to welcome him with open arms started hounding him for their money. Probably only those who've been in this kind of situation could understand just how desperate Franklin was. Then, Franklin got one piece of good news. The guy he'd put a bounty on earlier had found Peach, the one who also stole $5 million from him. It wasn't much, but it was enough to deal with the situation at hand. After getting the exact location, Franklin immediately raced to a mansion. From the looks of it, the place seemed like it had been abandoned for a while. He grabbed his weapon and went inside. Sure enough, he saw Peach wasted on the sofa from the drugs. Seeing his boss show up, Peach instantly sobered up. Franklin told him to hand over the money. Peach said his money was in the safe in the back. Right then, Peach sat up, and Franklin sent him straight to hell. Franklin rushed to find the safe. He tried every number related to Peach, but couldn't get it open. In a moment of desperation, he remembered a locksmith. Pretty quickly, a professional locksmith arrived. While the locksmith was working on the safe, some punk walked in, saw what was going down, and took off running. Franklin quickly gave chase. The locksmith, scared out of his mind, was about to run for it when Franklin, like the Grim Reaper, stood blocking the door, saying that if he opened the safe, he would be let go. Not long after, the locksmith cracked the safe. Franklin was incredibly excited, but that excitement quickly turned to disappointment. Unexpectedly, there were only $12,000 left inside. He felt truly hopeless. 3 years later, Leon became the most successful one, while Franklin hid in the old house his mother left him, spending his days drowning in alcohol. Leon couldn't bear to see his good brother in this ruined state. He offered Franklin a job, hoping to bring back the old, confident Franklin. Unsurprisingly, Franklin still refused Leon's good intentions. Franklin whispered, "Now is not the right time. The police, the CIA, and the KGB are all after me. Only by playing crazy and acting foolish can I survive." Only now did he understand why his mother had to kill Teddy. She simply wanted to sacrifice herself to protect everyone. Franklin wouldn't let his mother down. Before leaving, Franklin told Leon, "I won't be down like this forever. One day, we'll be able to stand shoulder to shoulder again, fight together, and build the next glorious era." So that's the entire story of all 6 seasons of Snowfall. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to catch all the latest videos. And now, goodbye and see you next time.